15 at 6:30 p.m. in the board meeting of the Teacher Administrative Center, 3215 Cummings Street. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the office of the Secretary of the Board of Education at the Administrative Building during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 84-14-12 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the board meeting room on the north wall. We do not have any Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts here this evening, so if you would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item that we have on the agenda is the vision and mission statement. And I think it's just a great opportunity for us to remember why we're all here, if we can say that together. So I think Ms. Williams is going to lead us in saying first the vision and then the mission. It's up on the screen for everyone to see. So I'm going to ask Ms. Williams to go ahead and lead us.
All right, we'll read the vision first. Every student, every day, prepared for success. And our mission, Omaha Public Schools prepares all students to excel in college, career, and life.
Looking around. Roll call, please.
Fay,
Here.
Godding,
Here.
America,
Present.
Scanlon,
Present.
Snow,
Here.
Underwood,
Here.
Vargas, Wayne, Williams.
Present.
8 present.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call on Mr. Andrews, and he will introduce our school spotlight.
Madam President, thank you. Board, good evening. Superintendent Evans, good evening. Tonight we are honored to have an outstanding group of student athletes from Benson High School joining us. Athletic Director Francis Zinski will introduce them to us. Please join me now in welcoming him.
Thank you, Todd. Well, we're back. As most of you remember, last spring we were here after winning our first girls state basketball tournament. This year, we're off to a pretty good start. We're rated number 1 in the state. We're undefeated right now. And we also won the first Metro Conference basketball tournament at Benson High School for the girls program. So it's a really good group of student athletes. We also are going to recognize 3 of our young ladies. 2 of them play basketball, and 1 is a softball player who have received Division I scholarships. So at this time, I'm going to introduce the coaches. Last year, John Perone was our girls basketball coach. He grew this program, and he now is a college coach at Hastings College, and we're excited for him at that opportunity. So we have 2 long-term OPS teachers and coaches who have been on the staff the last couple years. They're both retired now from teaching. Who I'm going to introduce. First, Bob Woodworth, if you want to come up, and Malia, come on up. Bob also coaches softball for us, and I'm going to let him introduce Malia to you.
Hi, this is Malia McKelvey. She will be going to Creighton University next year on a full ride scholarship to play softball. She's one of the big parts of the last few years of our softball being so successful. The year we went to state for the first time ever was a couple years ago. We played the number 1 team in the state, which was Millard West, and we upset them in extra innings, and we sort of threw the tournament into a tizzy after that. But Malia epitomized great softball player, great academics. We have another one that's already there this year, Tashauna Cofield Nelson. Her and Malia played a lot of games together in summertime and at Benson, so she'll be going there joining her teammate at Creighton University. So we expect a lot of big things for Malia. One of the best hitters I've ever seen, and just a great individualized student, and it shows, you can have academics and athletics together. They go hand in hand, and she epitomizes that. Very nice student. Want to say something? You want to say anything? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Pat Holston, if you'd come up now, please. And let's have our two young ladies that are going to go to Division I schools next year. Also, all of the other seniors on this team will also be going to school somewhere to play basketball on scholarship. So, Pat, I'll let you introduce these two.
I'll start out with our transfer from Northwest. This is her first year with us, and she's done a beautiful job. And that's Simone Good, excuse me. And she stepped in, and she's played extremely well for us, and she's also an honor student. So I can't go any further than that at this time. The other is Kiana Ibis. She's been with us since the freshman year. She's an outstanding young lady. She's also an honor student. She's carrying, I believe, a 4.0 GPA, and I could talk about her for a while. Since she's been in the program, she set just about every basketball record for Benson High School. From scoring to rebounding to rejecting shots, she's just an outstanding individual. So at this time, I would like to honor both of them on their success. My fault, here I go again. Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and Arizona State. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to recognize one more person. Anita Harkins, the building principal, is here. She is probably the girls' #1 fan, so let's give her a hand for being here. And then I'll let Coach Holston introduce the rest of the girls and the other coaches that are here. Okay?
Sure, whatever you tell me. Well, we'll start off first. I would like to introduce the rest of our seniors. Dalia Harris, Aubrey Benson, and Kanisha Plater. She's our 5'2" on the sheet,
I was about to say,
4'11" in reality, but she's the toughest player we have. And right now, I would like Coach Duggan will come up and introduce the rest of our team.
I'm 5'2".
I'm Coach Duggan. I'm going to introduce some of our underclassmen. We have Tyrea Cotton, a junior, Samantha Ibis, junior, and in the back there, Nautica Valentine, who's a junior as well, and then De'Ara Davis, who's one of our sophomores. And then we also have Coach Ashley Jones, one of our coaches, as well as Ricky Ruffin over here, one of our other assistant coaches. And like Mr. Zinski said, we're 13-0 on a 32-game winning streak, and are looking to keep that rolling this year, and have a tough one tomorrow night against Bellevue West, but we're looking to keep it going. So thank you for your guys' time and honoring these young ladies.
Oh, we would like the opportunity, yes. Please come around and shake our hands.
Thank you.
We're doing that fast.
Thank you so much. That was great to see. Just a couple housekeeping items as we get started. Just asking everyone in the audience and on the board to turn off their cell phones' sound so that that's not disruptive, and to remind those of us at the table with open meetings to not use cell phones or email during the board meetings. So appreciate that from everyone here. Next, we'll move to the treasurer's report.
President Gotting, the December financial reports for the district and ESU 19 are available for the board's review.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll move to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Gotting. A couple of items. First, I want to start off with some of you may have noticed in the World Herald today, Omaha World Herald, we had a editorial in the op-ed pages talking about the 2014, kind of a recap of what happened in 2014 in OPS. And we don't put the headlines there, but the editorial staff did, and it says OPS is poised to build on successes. And it's really a rundown of all the things that happened in 2014, from a strategic plan to a bond initiative to a district reorganization to all the other pieces that include technology advances. And I'm not going to read the whole article to you, but at the end of it is it's a great thank you from me, the staff, and a great thank you to this school board for doing an amazing job, probably accomplishing more than we had in any other year in the district's history. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, please do. And again, thanks to this school board for the energy, the vision that you all brought to this table. So thank you for that. Next item, I wanted to mention just a couple of things. First, I wanted to recognize that in the last couple of weeks, we have unfortunately, due to health reasons, lost a few staff members, including a longtime member of our staff, Tom Harvey, who had retired, I believe, about 3 years ago. And I would like to take a moment of silence, if that's okay, President. I appreciate that. I think we've lost some great educators, some that were currently in the system, so I appreciate everyone taking that moment to think about all the folks that make a difference for 52,000 lives, and we certainly have a lot of them here. Also wanted to mention that I had the privilege of being a part of the Martin Luther King celebration on Monday, and Mr. Snow and Mr. Wayne were with me there, and wanted to share with the staff that working with Sharif Liwaru, we are also working on a spring break trip that is part of the commemoration of the Selma to Montgomery March. We're kind of looking for some funding sources. Maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about it because it is going to have some costs with the bus involved and some hotel stay. But we're really excited about that, and I thank Mr. Liwaru for putting this piece together, and we're working now, as I said, to put all the other pieces together with it. So I think it's moving the right direction. And lastly, I want to tie up with, we just heard from the Benson team and the Benson AD, and we had the Benson principal here. In I believe it'll be our next school board meeting, we're going to have that report we've been waiting for, that report on the task force that all of you had asked us to work on and work with the community of Benson. And I know Ms. Williams was on that, Vice Chair Williams was on that committee, and I think some other board members as well. That report is nearly ready. I believe the task force has one more meeting. They've got one more community meeting, but I think you're going to be very pleased with the results. I've gone through the documents, I've met with the staff and met with some of the community members, and I think we're seeing some good work being done there. So we're anxious to have Benson come back in the not-too-distant future. Thank you.
Great. Okay, now we'll move to board members. Do you have any comments? And then I'll wrap it up. Ms. Merico.
Over this past weekend, I was able to attend the Exquisite Collaboration art show, which features artwork from our 6th through 8th graders from, I think, all of the middle schools now. It's the 4th year for it, and they've slowly increased the number of schools. And what makes it really unique is the fact that it's not just individual students' artwork. They're all interconnected and connecting with each other to create one big piece of art. And it really shows that even though we have multiple schools, we're all one community, we're all one school district. And our own superintendent, Mr. Evans, had a piece in the show this year, which I did not know he was that talented. It was, the clouds were very good. So it was a good time, and I hope everyone can make it next year to recognize our middle schoolers.
Mrs. Fay.
On Friday, I went to an arts education program that the Symphony does. This one's specifically for pre-K through 3rd grade, and while there were children there from all over the city, there were a couple of OPS schools. It's called Imagination Learning, and they do it throughout the city, throughout the school year, oftentimes in the schools, but this particular one was at the Holland. So there were 2 groups, each one, it appeared to me there were a couple hundred kids at each session, and it's probably one of the most high quality arts ed programs that I've seen in a long time. Really well put together, but the thing that impressed me the most was how engaged these very young children were in the whole program and what they got out of it. So if your school has not, and I'm talking specifically to you OPS teachers. If your school has not participated or brought Imagination Learning from the Symphony, you need to apply to have them come, and there are school bus grants that are available through the Nebraska Arts Council to help with transportation if you want to do it down at the Holland in the session that they do there. And there's matching funds available from the Nebraska Arts Council if you want to try and bring them to your school. It's a really top-notch program, and there were OPS students there, but there were a lot of other kids from other schools there. So I'd love to see more OPS schools taking advantage of this, really amazing arts ed, music ed program that has a whole curriculum that takes the students for pre-concert curriculum and a post-concert curriculum. And so it was really great. Miller Park, I think, was one of the schools that was there when I was there. So well done, Miller Park, for taking advantage of that opportunity.
Ms. Williams and then Mr. Scanlon.
Well, as you know, I've officially taken my seat on the learning community. It's been very exciting, lots of information, lots of meetings the past 2 weeks, but I've really appreciated the welcome. I had the opportunity to go to they had a community day on Saturday from 10 to noon at the North Learning Community Center. Amazing. Lots of families came out. It was well represented. There's a lot of new and upcoming things that they're doing in there. And I just wanted to take a moment to highlight they are working at the Learning Community North Center a parent engagement program design that Jamila Parker, the Director of Family Engagement Services, is creating. And it's really a great program from what we've discussed and she shared with us. There's 4 strands in this programming design. One is based around parenting, center-based education classes for students, really strengthening that child and parent bond. There's the second strand will be life skill and wellness, really giving families self-sufficiency, stability, and some other resource support. So really excited for that. And then where OPS will have an opportunity to really help engage that center and be more active is there's a school success piece that they're looking at different departments across the district to be able to come and speak to parents in a more small group setting. So it'll be a real great opportunity for them to understand the workings of the district, and even some of us as board members will be invited to come in and really get to know families and work. So that's really exciting, as well as offering a leadership strand, which helps parents become more engaged in their school, in their PTAs and in their PTOs, and really how to be breakout citizens and really give back as much as they get in return. So amazing opportunity. I'm looking to sharing more of that as that develops. Just wonderful program, so kudos to her. And then I also had the opportunity on Monday to take my children with about 600 other students from across the area in youth programs to go see Selma, go see Selma, and then they also had a voter rights panel, and just powerful. And it was amazing to see how much the students were engaged. I mean, they weren't talking, they didn't have their phones out, they were really there understanding how important voting is, and it was amazing experience. And so it was nice to be able to participate in that. And that's it.
I would just like to say that I guess as part of being a parent, kind of growing and realizing things that OPS provides opportunities to allow parents to grow, in the sense that Kindergarten Roundup was this past week or I guess last Thursday for Crestridge, and it's one of those to where you start to think, well, my younger child has seen the school, she's been there, she's seen things because of her older sister, but it was really nice to see Audrey, who's my younger child, kind of take ownership of the fact that she is starting kindergarten next year, and she actually told Ruby to get out of her room in the kindergarten room. So I think that the Kindergarten Roundup provides a great opportunity for families to get acquainted with the schools, and also allow the children that they will learn that this is their school, this is where they're going to be, and I think that it's a great It is a great opportunity to just get comfortable in those situations, and I'd just like to thank the administration for providing those opportunities to help ease the transition into kindergarten, and I think that is a great nightly event, or I guess an event at night that parents can attend with their children, and thank you for having that, and I think it was a great opportunity for my child to take ownership into starting their education.
Oh, that's awesome. Mr. Snow.
Thank you, Madam President. I had the opportunity last week to attend the NISA State Writing Rally at Miller Park last week for the fourth graders, and I've never been to a rally at Miller Park, but I was excited when I went in there. The kids were jumping up with joy because they brought pizza in, and it was actually sponsored by the entire school. And the interesting thing about it is they allow the third graders to attend the rally so they would understand about the tests that they're going to be taking actually today and tomorrow. So I was very appreciative of that, and I love the fact that when you go to Miller Park, they're always welcoming and open the door for you and allow you to come visit at any time. So thank you.
Awesome. If there are no other comments, I'll go ahead and wrap up with a few things. Kind of going along with what Marion said, I was at a symphony fundraiser this last week, and it was very interesting to hear the national speaker talk about how amazing it is in Omaha that the symphony engages students in activities. And so I encourage staff as well to think about how many opportunities we have in engaging students. I had the opportunity with Mr. Evans to attend the Learning Community. It probably wasn't a ribbon cutting ceremony, but the opening of the community breakfast with the opening of the new center, and get to take a tour and see some of the programs that are going on there. So very, very exciting things happening, and I think we'll see a lot come out of that particular facility, and I'm excited about the staff that are there as well. Just a quick update on CBOC, just to remind everyone, and including the public, I know it's been quite a while, but back in November, we asked for applicants to apply for the position on CBOC, and then those applications came in. I think we had an opening of a couple weeks, and then we had school board members make nominations for members to sit on the CBOC team, and those individuals have been appointed. And so I just want to quickly read through those names. I want to thank everyone who applied. We had a lot of people apply. It was a great turnout of applications, and it was a difficult process, I know, as board members submitted names and as we went through the list. So I do want to just quickly read through those, and if you would like a list of those names, Mr. Ray, do you have those if somebody wants to get a list? So they're in alphabetical order. Keith Bigsby, Woody Bradford, Michael Bruning, Shelley Henderson, Lenora Ism, William Johnson, Robert King, Michael Labens, Michael Lesser, Craig Mayer, Mary McHale, Nicole Nevis, Carolina Casada, Chris Rogers, Greg Van Dyke, Brett Vosick, Jim Vocal, Margaret Wickham Bennett, Matt Scanlon, Katie Underwood, and Justin Wayne will be our board representatives. So just wanted to give that information out to the public. They will be completing I think a non-compete or something like that agreement. So there's documents that Mr. Scanlon will have for everyone. And again, thank you to everyone who applied, because it was a great turnout and we really appreciate that. To wrap up, this is someone who has been with the district for a very, very long time. It's his last meeting. And so we just want to thank Dr. Poole for his years of service to the district. I know some of us have only been on the board for a short amount of time, but I just want to thank him for all the work he's put forth since we all came on as this board, and working toward moving from site-based to priority-based budgeting, and the open book website, which is just phenomenal, and we get so many compliments on. So I just want to thank you for all your years of service and everything that you have done, and your solid understanding of TIOSA, which we may be calling you during a legislative committee asking for help on understanding something. So I would appreciate if you'd all join me in thanking Dr. Paul.
Thank you, President Gotting, board members, and the Omaha Public Schools. It has been a great run, and we've had lots of good things happen, lots of challenging things happen, but I think one of the things that I want to say is that this Omaha Public Schools team has always managed to work through them, and with the leadership from our board, I'm sure that that will continue as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we will move on to public comment. So the first public comment is from Jesse Statham. If you would please come forward and state your name, spelling of your last name, and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. And Mr. Ray will let you know when you have 1 minute left, and then he'll let you know again when you have 30 seconds left as well.
Thank you. President Gotting, Superintendent Evans, the other board members, administrators, and staff. My name is Jesse Statham. Last name spelled S as in Sam, Tatham. I live at 7105 North 117th Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska. I come before you tonight to express my concern over the opportunity or lack of opportunity to serve on the committee that the President just spoke about. She mentioned about the selection of the CBOC committee, which is the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. And I don't know if you all, perhaps some of you recognize my face because I am a frequent attendee at these board meetings, and I come and listen to try and stay abreast of what the Omaha Public School Board is doing and how you're operating, and wishing that everything will go well for the students that we are here to serve. When the bond issue was discussed and presented to the public, I thought that the Omaha School Board did an excellent job in promoting that issue to the public and soliciting support from the public to pass that bond. It was a very excellent effort on the part of the board. The idea of establishing a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee was presented, and that pricked my interest and caused me to say that I want to step off the sideline and perhaps get involved just a little bit by hopefully serving on that committee. I was never informed, neither did I ever see or hear of the process of which I could use to apply to serve on that committee. So therefore, I feel that I didn't have the opportunity to make it known that I would like to provide that effort to what you're doing. So I'm curious as to what that process was, how it was publicized, and what the solicitation was for getting the applicants that you, President Gotting, spoke of, and coming up with the number of persons who were finally selected to serve on that committee. I hope that my expression tonight is not an effort in futility, because I still have an interest in the well-being of this school board, the school system, and the community in which we live. Once I heard that the committee was going to be established, and in my searching I couldn't find the information or never saw the information of the application process, then I did contact my representative on the board, who is Mr. Justin Wayne. I'm in school district, sub-district 4, and so he informed me that at that particular time the application process had closed. So that put me outside the window, if you will, of hopefully being considered. In the times that I've attended the board meetings, as I said, I listened to the proceedings, and I know that board members have a particular concern about transparency and how you're conducting your business.
1 minute.
I hope that you're sincere about that, because I don't feel that the application process for this particular effort was transparent enough, at least not to make me aware of it. Many of you are new to the board. We're all aware of the processes that occurred a couple of years ago.
30 seconds.
The citizens of this community elected you all, and I feel that the mandate that was given was for you to conduct business in a different way than it had been conducted before, and I'm hoping that you will do that. I'm asking you to give consideration, reconsideration for the application for process for participating in the CBOC committee, and I would like to serve if given the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, and Mr. Ray, will you please follow up with Mr. Statham? Thank you. Do you have any other forms?
No.
Okay. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda that is before us.
So moved.
So there is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. Williams and a second by Ms. Underwood. Are there any abstentions? Mr. Snow.
Thank you, Madam President. I will be abstaining from Claims Report C, 1.5.
Okay. Thank you very much. So at this time, we will have the roll call with the abstention of Mr. Snow, who will be abstaining from number C, right? 5. Roll call, please.
Fay.
Aye.
Gadding.
Aye.
America.
Aye.
Scanlon.
Aye.
Snow. Aye. Underwood.
Aye.
Vargas.
Aye.
Wayne.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. This time we'll move to information items. First information item is J1A, Americanism Committee Update. Mr. Wayne?
13. The Americanism Committee met last Friday. We were establishing what the role of our committee was, and we, since it's actually a statutory mandated committee, we just decided we will follow the statutory mandate. And part of that is social studies, but it's a lot broader than that when you look at the statute. But our first 3 items that we're going to tackle is there's a program that's currently grant funded called Making Invisible History Visible, and the board committee members talked about the importance of knowing one's history as a way of violence reduction all the way to engaging students to a little bit of everything. And with that conversation, we've instructed staff to come back with a way to embed that type of program into 3rd or 4th grade. The board members didn't know which grade was best, but 3rd or 4th grade to learn about, if you don't know about this program, it's where students engage in the summertime to learn about North and South Omaha and their respective cultures, and they make videos on it. They're all online. It's really cool. To embed that in the curriculum in some way in the 4th grade level, and then also in the high school level, there's a class, elective class called Omaha History, and there's another one, Nebraska History, and try to embed those type of engagement tools as far as they could go down to North 24th Street and know exactly what they're talking about, what it was in 1925, 50, even the latest 1980s. So they can see that real history, a part of their own history. And that led to another discussion about a program called, or not, pedagogy. I was corrected numerous times in the meeting for saying that. Called History Alive, and it's a way to teach students in a very interactive manner history, and it actually expands into all different types of classroom settings, but it's a very methodic way of how to have conversations, how to position the classroom in certain ways so they can feel the actual senses, your different senses of what it's like to live back then in that history time. So staff is putting together a budget and just like how it would work. And then the last thing is the social studies new curriculum update that's already kind of in the works. But because this is a statute-driven committee, we will be providing those recommendations to the full board at the time. We have a next meeting will be in February, the end of February, which gives staff enough time to tackle them. And we don't plan on in the March meeting having all three done. We're going to flesh it out. We're going to have conversations. So before we come to the board, we'll have most of the answers to any questions that come up that we can just talk about them. But those were the main three things we talked about. We will meet again in February. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the board members who are serving on that committee. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the time that they put in. Next, we will move to the bond program update. And right before that, I do want to note that, go ahead and come on up. I do want to note that Dr. Turnquist will be getting some information out to the board on the communication plans and thoughts so that as board members we understand, because I know Mrs. Fay, you brought up how will we communicate to the public. So Dr. Turnquist has started to put some things together, and she'll get that out to all of us in the next week or so.
Yes, Ms. Gotting, thank you. Superintendent Evans, members of the board, Vice President Williams. We do have a committee, a communications committee, that is delving into a broader communications plan, not only with the board but also with the public. So that is still in the works. But what Ms. Gotting has referred to just now is specifically communication with board members, and that will be coming to you next week, the way we're going to roll that out. Okay. And for the, do you want me to go ahead? Okay. For the bond, 2014 bond program update, I'm pleased to present our program manager from Jacobs, Mr. Mark Summers. And for our economic inclusion portion of the bond program, Gleetha Gillespie and our own Sharif Liwaru, who is working with Gleetha and with Gabrielle Mack on the development of that very in-depth program.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide a fairly quick and kind of concise presentation today. Going to split presentation duties, so we'll move through it fairly rapidly. There we go. So just a quick look at the agenda. We're going to touch some high points of the overall program. Currently where we're at in the master schedule, and we passed out a master schedule to all of the board members. It's the entire master schedule. We're going to really focus on the first third of that, or first quarter of it in this presentation. Talk about the current and active projects that we're quickly working on to prepare and package. A significant next step in a lot of the projects, which is the Educational Specification Committee, which is a really exciting time for the projects and the principals and all the folks associated with that. And then we're also going to get an update on the Economic Inclusion Plan development. So we spent a lot of the after the bond program was passed, we really got to work on introducing our team and ourselves to a lot of the school principals that will be involved, and starting to discuss some of the processes that we'll want to implement, really working on creating the relationships given the amount of disruption and activity that's going to be happening at their locations. We really want to make sure we have good communication there. Working on a few of the technical components of the program, which what's in front of you as an action item later on today is award of the design contracts, if you will. So we really worked with the legal, Barrett Home Legal, to review the existing agreements that were in place, identify opportunities to maybe clarify some components of it, identify deliverables that we want to make sure the services across all of the projects was going to be the same. So worked on that. And we're continuing that effort also with the construction side of the contract, so general contracting and a few others. Another important document that is used throughout the program is the optimal facility guidelines and the technical specification. And really those are the two components that we provide the designers that identifies what the needs are inside of any particular project. So if we have an elementary school, that would be a replacement facility and it's 400 students. It identifies each compartmentalized component and the square footage is necessary to support that facility. And then the other side of the document is the technical specifications of what kind of lights we like to have in the ceiling tile and the paint and the carpet. So again, to make sure that all the projects have similar direction or the same direction, we provide that to all the professionals, and that's what they use to compare their design effort to, and we also validate that, yes, this is in line with what the district standards are. So it's a really, really thick document, a lot of technical reading, but we're quickly updating that. The design firm selection, again, I mentioned there's an action item further in the agenda regarding that specifically to Quick Start, but really working with the district to match up the processes needed to go through that selection, an inclusive selection process. And there's a lot of parts and pieces and flow charts and different things that really make all of these processes go. And then, of course, a significant effort and a lot of focus on the economic inclusion plan. So really excited to be able to share some information on that. As I mentioned, the entire master schedule's in front of you. But I wanted just to kind of draw a red line on the document there to show really where we're at in time. So you can see as the light green and as the green approaches, that's the construction effort of the Quick Start, which is the first grouping of projects. And then the next grouping of projects there really consist of some major renovations, some replacement facilities, as well as starting to work on a couple projects with the open plan concept. So redesigning that. So the scale of the projects is increasing, but we are on time, and when we're rapidly getting ready to really start some fun processes with the actual schools and the principals. Again, I mentioned the current and active projects of Quick Start, design firm selection, and then there's a slide here where we'll talk in detail about educational specification committees. I mentioned Group 1, which consists of really three components: the replacement facilities, the replacement schools at Bell Ryan and Western Hills, the open plan at Franklin and Sunny Slope, and the capital improvement projects at Northwest High, Indian Hill, and Crest Ridge. So currently we've issued requests for proposals out to the design consultants and engineers for that Group 1 project. And we're planning on coming back to the board February 19th with a request of an action item to award those design contracts. So the way that the master schedules is staggered, in the first three groupings of projects really come fairly rapid. They're staggered about by a month. So we'll be up in front of the board monthly asking for approval to move forward with design agreements to propel the schedule forward. Educational Specification Committee. So we've had a chance to visit with a lot of the principals about this, and I believe at the principals meeting this past month, this was a topic of conversation to make sure there was clear expectations and communication on what this Educational Specification Committee is about. I would note that I believe we passed out the individual page of the Educational Specification Committee. It's a much more in-depth write-up of what that committee consists of and the different functions inside of it. This is an abbreviated version. So there's a separate handout, and then it's also inside of that program management handbook that we passed out this evening. But really, it's a team selected by the principal, and involves the project manager, that's the assigned project manager from the Jacobs team, a large group of design professionals, central staff that have been identified depending on the project needs. Again, we want to make sure we're supporting all the different aspects of what the project's needs would be. Parent involvement, student involvement, other community group involvement. We really work a lot with the principal on allowing them to kind of develop that group And then depending on the intensity of the project and type of project, it'll dictate the number of meetings and the different topics of the meetings. The design professionals that are hired really are the facilitators of this process. It's one of the key components that we assess, or that is assessed during the evaluation process when they're pursuing an award. So it's a really fun time to allow the group to come together and kind of create vision around a project and really dream about different components inside the school or inside of the project that they may want to see come true. The ultimate yield from the Education Specification Committee is a schematic design. And what the schematic design is it's a very high level, it's the first pass of the design documents that will ultimately come at the very, very end of the process, but shows general arrangements of how rooms would be, and it gives a lot of good narrative about what is this vision that was set by the Ed Spec team, what does it mean from a tangible delivery perspective, and so is there exterior components that need to be incorporated to match up with that vision, or is there a certain type of architecture that wants to be utilized? So that's a really fun and exciting part. So I'm going to let my partner come up and.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name again is Galitha Gillespie, and I am the Equity and Inclusion Consultant for Jacobs, and I'm very excited today to share with you some updates in reference to how we're moving forward with this whole initiative on the bond. And one of the first things we have done is we have formed a team, and Sharif Laurel is a part of that team, and we're very excited about having his participation to give us an added value as it relates to the community and the workforce. Some of the work that we've already begun, we've already started talking with some of the board members. We plan to talk to each and every one, and I think there are some additional appointments that are coming next week. And what we're doing is we're doing the assessment to better understand exactly what it is that you want to see as a board. What are you representing the community, and how is it that we can actually facilitate some of these results? So that's going to be moving forward. We've also spent an ample amount of time since we first met with community organizations, and some of them I will mention in a little bit, but certainly getting an understanding of what's moving forward, what's happening, and where some gaps are in the Omaha community. And a big piece, you've already heard about the OPS Quick Start program and the bond, and how we have leaped forward and made certain that economic inclusion is a part of that. So what I wanted to do today was to share with you an approach that is our preliminary objectives for the initiative, and you will see this threaded throughout everything that we do. This is where we started. We had to start somewhere, and we believe that this three-pronged approach is really going to get you what you're looking for, and something that is sustainable and also measurable. Those are outcomes that we promise in the future. And I also want you to keep in mind that what we are proposing, we realize that this is the first time ever that it's been done here in Omaha, and we believe that what we're doing is integrating in a way that will create a positive effect change for policies and procedures so that it can be sustainable as we move forward. So the first thing that we say that we want to do, and this is a part of our contract, is to promote the utilization of emerging business. That is number one. We want to promote that. We want to look at the homegrown businesses here in Omaha first to see where there's opportunity. We're spending a lot of time with anybody that we talk to asking if they know of any firms that are currently being utilized. We're trying to understand where the base is so that when we prepare the document for you, you can actually see that. But again, we want to grow that, whatever that number is. We want to be able to encourage community hiring of diverse candidates, and that's where Sharif is the catalyst there and helping guiding us through what some of those terms can be. And so that's a very key piece of the program. We're looking to utilize STEAM and STEM as a result of that work. And also, the third piece that we're carrying the message forward is that we want to enhance and grow student learning. Student learning is a big piece for this. We're developing partnerships with our contractors and our firms to help them to understand that that is, again, a very key piece of what the expectations are. So some of the accomplishments so far is that we now have economic inclusion language that has been developed for the AE Quick Start firms in their questionnaire and their RFP. And I also would like to say that not only did we develop language that has been adopted and approved by Scott Dye, but we also have a measure in there, a number, a numeric of 7% that we're expecting for them to deliver as it relates to the small disadvantaged business. And I know that that's something that has not been there before. In order for them to actually understand what that's all about and how it worked, we had a workshop, and we all participated on the workshop. And even as a matter of fact, on the questionnaire and the panel, Sharif actually was a part of that panel to grade and rate and rank those Quick Start consultants. So he has a very thorough understanding of who they are and what they have promised. So we did a workshop on a Saturday, and I'll show you the agenda of that so you can see how detailed it was. And we really believe that this whole theme is around partnerships, so that at the end of the day, when we actually leave from here, will you have a program that is respected and appreciated to the sense that all of your partners want to participate. In order for them to do that, they really had to understand what it is that we were asking them to do. So that's the reason why we hosted that day, that they could actually come in. We spent 45 minutes with them, each one of them, to explain what that was. Also, we have provided, we actually had them to participate with us on the Empowerment Network that actually took place on that Saturday, and we'll give a summary of that. I also added some additional bullets to this because, you know, this is a process in motion. Every day we are doing work, we are creating results, and I just wanted you to know, since we turned this in, some additional things that have taken place. We are participating as a key component on the communication plan team that is moving forward. And so when you see that plan, you will also see economic inclusion, and we're planning to be a part of your good news story that will go out to the community. We also have been in collaboration with the OPS supply chain, Susan Colvin and Jim Scrobo, in reference to helping them to understand this three-pronged approach and how it is that they can also integrate economic inclusion in their opportunities moving forward in the 7 divisions. And so we started work there, have some action items moving forward that we'll give you an update on. We also have worked with Mark Warnicke's group, Building and Maintenance, and I will say that if I had to throw a dart, this is where the sweet spot is for sure, especially for community vendors, because, you know, the spend is already broke down, is less than $50,000, doesn't require a bond, and they're very willing and excited about letting the opportunity and working with the vendors. So there's ongoing calls for work, procurement, and we're going to make certain that they have a thorough list of vendors that are from the community that can participate in that. I also wanted to let you know that we've been in the community in a very strong way, and we have met with community organizations, all of which you all have heard from, know about, Willie Barney's group, Dick Davis, Houston McHale, the Contractors Alliance. So we are there we're here every day doing work on the ground to make certain that we gather the information in our assessment process so that when we present to you, we will have a very, very thorough approach. So I want to, at this time, share with you the components of the agenda that we had on January the 8th, which is it next? Okay. Okay. We thought it was important to share this with you so that you would have an understanding of the depth of information that is going forward to the Quick Start, and we don't plan to stop with the Quick Start. We plan to have this as we move forward for all of the contractors and subcontractors moving forward. So this is the agenda that we had on January the 8th. We spent a solid 45 minutes with each firm that has already been selected, letting them know and understand what it is, why it is, and how they actually can get it done. And so, I don't know, Sharif, if you want to share some highlights of that day in any way?
Primarily what we wanted to do was make sure that as the firms were looking at moving forward, that they understood what we were looking at doing. We've heard from our communities, and we've been involved long enough to know that as contracts come, there are people that are left out. And that this particular effort is to make sure that that inclusion happens in a very intentional way. We also talked about the why, as a school district, we're looking at this because of the impact that it has on our students. With 52,000 students, with 114 plus languages spoken within our district, with the poverty rates that we have, we look for any way to improve our communities from the perspective of our school district. So we're not trying to be everything, but everything that we can be. And one of the things that we find is that as we are distributing the resources within this particular bond, that can have a direct impact on the families of the students that we have. We would like for the students to be able to go home and know that their mother or their father worked on some of the projects that we had. We would like to know that they were, a family that was looking to expand their business, that they were able to do so with an opportunity and a connection with the school district. Another thing that we wanted to do was connect the interest in these areas. We find that a lot of our contractors are saying that they're not the resources that they can pull from to be able to find the contractors that they need in a variety of different areas, from supply all the way to the construction element. And what we're doing is also within this component figuring out ways in which we can introduce parties that may not be in current conversations, those who have the resources to be able to contract, and those who have the contracting, the abilities to be able to honor that. One element that we find is that there are not enough engineers and architects, and the titles go on in terms of a pool to be able to expand it to the level that it can be, but there are far more than are being utilized. But as a school district, what we can do is we can use this as an opportunity to spark our youth. And so we talk to them about things that we may be able to do in partnership with them to be able to allow students to be able to see this process. Not just that they're gone for the summer, they come back and the work has been done, or that there's a plywood or something up that they can't see past, and when it comes down, everything's looking nice. What is it that the process that happens to make that, and then connecting them with the academics that they're in now? So how can we tie in the student academics with the outcomes in these particular fields, and understanding that there are a myriad of fields that it takes to be able to accomplish what we're going to be doing over the next 3, 4, 5 years, and we want them to be involved with the process right away. So right away with our Quick Start projects, we share with them that's why we're looking at the economic inclusion, and to think outside of the box in terms of what we want to or are able to do. And so how can they spark the interest? How can they look at making sure that they're hiring within our communities? And then also when they're working on the projects, connecting them to the resources. And that's what the Empowerment Network meeting was able to do. We had quite a few of the majority of the Quick Start project companies that we were working with were there, and were able to meet one-on-one with people who they may not have had a connection with, and it was also able to share with them some of the requirements. So some of those who may not have been familiar with the process, now hearing directly from our primes on what needs to be done to be ready for that. And so that was the kind of perspective that I shared from the district level, along with the information about how we're moving forward and how the ideas that they have on their end of the table can help us as we develop a permanent process and procedures.
And so one of the things that you'll see and you'll build a great respect for, we're building partnerships, lasting partnerships. And these partnerships are going to create what's really called flow-down opportunities. So when we talk with many of the Quick Start consultants, you know, some of them are small business themselves, and they're saying we only have a few people. Well, we really are challenged trying to understand how is it that we can make the contribution to the bond program. And so what we did, what I explained to them is that their opportunities are every day in terms of their operational needs. If they took a mirror out and looked at the community here, they would see many of those community vendors that are providing landscaping, janitorial services, professional services. If they're spending money, and every business has to spend money on legal and accounting, those are things that they should be looking at in terms of how is it that they spend their money to operate their business and to think about inclusion before they spend. So that was one of the major takeaways of the program, and I think it was an eye-opener for the Quick Start vendors, and also we're looking internally so that we are able to walk the walk. OPS is going to walk the walk for the in the bond program. It's going to be reflective of that. And so we told them that they had about 10 days to go away and to come back with their economic inclusion plan. And I'm very proud to say that today we have plans from all 7 of the firms, because there was one that was added on that was not a part of this, but we still spent the time to have a 45-minute one-on-one with that firm, and they all have come back with some very creative things that they want to do. All of them have said that they want to participate in the cross-functional student learning as an ongoing effort to see new engineers and architecture firms, because they see a void in that. And some of them have already highlighted some opportunities of which we're going to be communicating and going out to look for firms that do document printing, engineer consultants. We also had some discussions today even about banner printing, a PR communication firm. And one of the firms said that they were looking for a like organization of the Empowerment Network that worked specifically in the South Omaha community, because they wanted to do the same type of work in South Omaha. So they got their thinking caps on. We're going to have a matrix and a measure to continue to share with you the results. And I think that what we're doing is certainly creating a win-win for us all, and something that even after we're packed up and gone, you all can feel very proud about the results. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you this update. And again, just remember that this is the first time. It's something that's going to be sustainable and measurable. And I look forward to continuing to serve you.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions at this time related? Ms. Underwood.
Thank you for your presentation. This is really exciting to get this work started on all levels, just strictly from the facility side and then also from the economic inclusion side as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing about the communications piece of this, because I think that that's just so important. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm glad that there's work being done on that. One of the things that I just wanted to ask, because we've had a long time since we've had major work through a bond program here in OPS, and there's a lot of staff and parents and students who have been waiting for a long time for something to happen to their school. So I just ask, we all know that schedules change as we go along, so if there are schedule changes, if you could just bring those forward so we're aware of them as soon as possible, that would be great. I also had a question on, so with this next package of projects that's coming up, it looks like there are probably at least a couple schools that will need to find alternative locations starting a year from now, construction will start or so. So I was just curious on when that process begins to look at alternative locations for housing an entire school.
As part of the details of each project scope is developed, we work alongside, we have a portable plan that we're constantly analyzing of what's available in the district, what's available, pardon me, set that down, sorry, what's available outside the district to see if there's opportunities we want to disrupt students the least amount. So if we can co-locate portables and phase the project, we look for those opportunities. We're also in the process of looking long-term and trying to identify, are there needs for full school swing spaces? So in the previous program, the Mills building, for example, was utilized. And I believe 2 elementary schools were placed in there so that they could do the renovations in a lot more expeditious manner. So that process has started. Again, it really depends on the specific scope of some of the projects. So we're trying to create a global plan and some logic behind it. And then as we drill into specific projects, we identify what the real need is. Again, is it a phased project, or is it better to remove the entire campus for that period of time? Mm-hmm.
Mr. Scanlon, followed by Mr. Snow.
I had just a couple of questions and comments. I guess you had mentioned some of the including students that are currently at our public schools. Is there a plan with like the community center or the career center, and also programs like the electrical program at Benson to encourage those prime contractors that are able to be awarded those projects to utilize those students that are in those programs and interested in? I know we've got a construction program at the Career Center. We've got the electrical one, like I mentioned, at Benson. Is there a plan to include and encourage and promote those students to gain internships?
Yes, so every one of the contractors, subcontractors that come to the table will be given that as an approach. And what we're finding that is one of the they consider one of the soft areas where they can immediately get involved. And so what we want to do is we want to gather the information, and when we sit with you, if you give us all the detail, we want to be able to gather the information so that we can provide it back out to the consultants to let them know the how to get involved. So we already have a map of the quick starts, what it is that they want to do, and specifically in the area of outreach with student learning, what particular area. And so now what we want to do is to get a list of the schools that would be interested in that and do the match and measure results. So yes, I think what's missing at this time is, again, the information about where the classes are, what programs are out there, so that we can direct the consultants to those particular areas. And also what we want to do is to get a timeline, and that will all be included in our plan, because we want to do a timeline in conjunction with the schedule of the classroom. If it's a summer program, it's a program we want to kick off in the fall. If it's something that's already moving forward, that some can leap into now. So really, maybe on the board there may be a person that might want to step up to lead that, to help guide us through, so that we can channel that down to all of the consultants and subs that come to the table. Because the sense that I'm getting is that every one of them are going to want to do something as it relates to school. And in the summary that they have shared, many of them are already doing this work for other clients, and so they see this as an early on fix.
Now that you mentioned that a lot of them will be happening over the summer, I guess it'd also be nice to find some way to incorporate those graduates that have maybe gone on to local community colleges to encourage them to get internships, because I wasn't necessarily thinking of the longer projects that go on throughout the other than the summer. Another question I had, you had mentioned 7%, I guess.
Aspirational goal.
Yes. Is that overall, or is that for each individual project?
So this is for the AE firms and the Quick Start, and we say it's an aspirational goal, and it is for their contract value that we're looking at, and we expect that they would share with us a plan of how they can get there. We said that it's not about everybody trying to do the same things. A couple of them may do one and maybe not three, but that's the goal that we put out there. And so what we're going to find is that many of the firms themselves are small business. So they can just say, I count myself because I meet the small business requirements on the federal side, and they come with their list of other small businesses that they're utilizing. So that's an aspirational goal. That goal may increase as we look at the construction and see them at risk. But this is where we're starting with the AE consultants.
I guess just to clarify, or I guess I'm just still trying to figure everything out, is that have you looked at the capacity that Omaha has? Is that a reasonable goal? And is that something, I guess, where did the 7% come from? I know a lot of the state, state-run projects, they're more in the 2.5% to 4%. I'm just curious where the 7% came, and I'd also like to ask, I'll let you answer that one first.
Okay. Well, we know that the City of Omaha's goal is 14%. Okay? And what we wanted to do was to have a launching pad to send the message that this is important and that we will measure. And so we thought that it was fair and equitable to ask for the combined goal for small business and small disadvantage at 7. And so, no, we're not waiting till we get all the data and study out and try to figure out capacities. We wanted to start somewhere, and it's aspirational. So we didn't say good faith effort, we said aspirational. Everybody get in the pen, let's work it out together. We're here as a resource. If you provide us with a list of what you're looking to source for, we'll go out in the community and help find that and qualify it.
My final question is just, as you say, qualify. What is the qualification process? Is it different than what the City of Omaha has already developed in their qualifications for the DBE program, or are we suggesting a different program for Omaha Public Schools?
No, we're not going to suggest a different program because we don't have the resources to certify. And so we're going to partner with other organizations that actually do certify and send ones that are not certified through there. And yes, we are planning to have a similar program. What we don't know at this time, and we're putting down our work on and studying out, is the definition of what's going to be included under the umbrella of equity inclusion here, and that's something that's going to be a part of our plan when we move forward. But you know, I don't think that it's going to be anything that's a aha or anything that's new. We just want to make certain that it is inclusive of all the concerned groups that are reflective on a national level and also those on a local level.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Mr. Snow.
Thank you, Madam President. I think the federal government came through, Mr. Scanlon, and said there was 14% in Omaha, and then the city is trying to meet that. But if I'm correct, I think the city's only at 4% with their project. Thank you for presenting today. And I know it's a lot of work because we've never done this before as a district. So we're in uncharted waters in a bit. I have a list of questions, but I can just send them in an email, but I just want to harp on a couple.
Sure.
And the first question doesn't concern you, actually, sorry. So I was looking at your schedule, and you have a capital improvement for Indian Hill, and it's $11 million. Am I correct? Is that still for 600 kids in that school, 650, in that range? It's a replacement school. What's the capacity on that school?
1 second.
It's not. It's Indian. I think you're going back in and just up in India.
Yeah, it's a capital improvement. It is not a replacement.
And it's for the current model 600 kids, right?
Correct.
Have you guys been meeting with people in the community about large projects coming up in that area?
Specifically to
that,
Indian
or to
Hill?
any of your projects? Just
No,
to make sure that we don't...
We really want to get really the first step to that is the educational specification and some other, other than the other awareness that was done in kind of the pre-bond effort. We haven't had that opportunity. We want to make sure that we're working in conjunction with our designers and the school staff on those communications, so that we're not out messaging something and the school has a different perspective on it. So really, today is a huge step forward in that process of officially getting an agreement in place with these designers to start, really attending. We have had opportunities to be at PTA and PTO meetings and have some general discussion, but we really want to make sure that we're following process and getting agreements in place, and then we can really, turn that process on.
Okay. The reason why I bring this up is Howard Kennedy, when the district went in and remodeled that school, they weren't really communicating with the city and organizations around, and a neighborhood disappeared. Housing area development disappeared, and they lost a lot of their kids. And since I work in the area, there's the Omaha Housing Authority is talking about doing some changes with the housing over there, and there's like 850 units over there, and if they remove that housing area, we're going in to redo Indian Hill with $11 million, and that's half of their kids. So where would those kids come from? I know they're doing some other works, but just to make sure that we're not doing this large project and then we have a issue later on. And that's something they've been talking about. So I just, before you start the design work, to really go into the community and make sure that everybody is on board, because some people do operate in silos.
Absolutely.
And then they'll just make a decision and it'll affect everybody in the community. So that's just a wise way of spending money.
So as part of working with the ed spec committees, we invite research to be part of that process early on to reconfirm what that forecast enrollment is.
Okay, so they'll be going through making sure that somebody's not coming in and demolishing it for
One way or the
a
other.
golf resort. Okay.
Right.
All righty. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that was going on so we wouldn't have an issue there. My second question actually involves the inclusion piece, so thank you.
Sure, no problem.
So you said aspirational goal for 7%. So for these firms, and this, it's kind of like, I don't know how to form these questions, so it might just be all over the place.
Okay.
So 7% is the goal. Is that including SBDB contractors, or are we including students in there, in that 7%?
Yeah, so we will give a weight to, so one goal, would be numeric in terms of their spend with the DBEs. The other two areas will have a weight in which we can assign a quantitative measure based upon their opportunity for STEM and STEM and STEAM. Also, not just identifying the opportunity, but how well will they execute the opportunity, and what are going to be some results. So we are going to come up with a factor on that, and to be able to, give points to those that actually do participate in those programs. One of the things that we communicated when we met with these firms is that we're not looking for them to do everything. We're just looking for them to do what is very measurable and substantive. And they know their organization. Some of these firms, like I say, may be an office of 6 architects, and they utilize their own intellect, and so they don't spend a lot of money. And so what we wanted to do was to create various venues in which the firms could actually participate and not exclude those who don't have big dollars.
The reason why I bring that up is I want to make sure we don't get into the piece of just saying that we're going to bring on a bunch of kids that are OPS kids or in wherever, and they're in internships, and some could be paid internships, some could be non-paid, but not really focusing on when they graduate high school, they still don't know what they're doing, but they were out on somebody's construction doing whatever. I just want to make sure, and the 7%, if that company does not reach that 7%, what are the next steps? So what if every company comes through, and I hate putting up hypotheticals, but what if everybody comes through and says we only get 4%? What is those next steps to make sure that we get to the 7%? Because I'm not a fan of the student piece in there, but how do we make sure that they get to that 7%?
Again, we don't know what the current capacity is, so again, we threw a dart and we said 7% with some measures around that. We're going to make certain every step of the way that at least the effort, some serious effort has been put forth for the 7%, and we're going to celebrate those that actually do make it and create a competitive environment so that there's a report card that goes out, there's a reporting that goes out, and those that achieve it and exceed it win big. Those that don't, well, as the next opportunities come around, we'll have an opportunity to see that and know that there were some stellar performers and there were some performers who didn't meet the expectation. So that's where we're at this time. We don't have a punitive system. We don't say you lose your contract as a result of it. It's an aspirational goal. It's more teeth in it than the good faith effort.
And I appreciate your efforts on that, but if maybe this is something that I say to you or to the board, but if we really want to hit our 7% goal, we really have to start putting some teeth in this. I don't know how much you guys are spending on your program, but I know it's just getting started, but I think we really need to hit that goal of 7. If that's the goal that you're going to be trying to hit, 7. And my personal opinion is if we can't find 7% SB and DB in Omaha, we need to find someone to move to there's companies that relocate to areas to hire people to make sure we reach those goals.
Absolutely.
And you agree with me, and I want to make sure that we are doing that, because looking at this project, by time March comes, we're going to be out. That's almost $70 million or $50 million that is already going to be working. And I want to make sure also, because they talked about design consultants and engineers, how many of those are SB, DB contractors?
I am smiling because I can't wait to talk to you. This is one of the things that we have on our board assessment. We ask that very same question and ask that the board members would respond to that. If the capacity is not here, will you adopt policies? Will it be acceptable for us to grow businesses to Omaha that can meet the requirements? And so that's a key question, you know, and we know that...
Is that something that you're telling the contractors, or
no?
Who are you?
We're asking you first, as a board of directors, is that an approach that is acceptable, that if we cannot, or if we're being slow in finding current DBEs that are ready to go, that if we find some in Kansas City, Chicago, Iowa,
that will come here,
develop
programs to hire people
not
in Omaha.
just come here, but establish a business here. Establish a business.
Right.
Is that acceptable?
And that's probably something for the next conversation, I'm thinking.
Yeah, so we're really still in the data gathering and building the program. So when Gleetha talks about getting information from you, we'll incorporate that into the plan.
Okay,
This is only
so
what we've put out
since I jumped ahead, so what's the next steps then?
So the next steps is to come back to you February the 19th with the details of what the components of the plan, and then after that, follow up with the plan.
I'm gonna hold you to it.
I'm holding myself to it, and I always overachieve, so watch out.
Yeah, I think she means it when
I
she
think that's
says
a promise.
that. Let's see, Mr. Scanlon has one more question, and then Mr. Wayne, did you have one? And then we'll wrap it up here.
One of the things that I was thinking of as we've had this discussion. The DBE focus tends to be on ownership. And I also know that Omaha has a program that qualifies businesses based on who they employ from certain areas of disadvantaged areas of town. And I think that that should be something that we should look at, that businesses, regardless of who owns them, it's the percentage of percentage of employees based on certain areas of town that you can qualify for certain things. And I think that's something that we should also focus on, because it goes one step beyond just who owns the business, but who that business employs. So I would encourage you guys to look into that, and please try to incorporate that into the program that you guys are developing.
Mr. Wayne.
And that was going to be one of the things I was going to say, but just so I'm clear, our projected time frame when work is completed is how many years out? 5 years out? Okay. And then while we're still on this agenda item, I am going to make a public request that we bring CBOC back as a formal vote so people can explain how the process went. And the reason is I remember the OSERS meeting where Mr. Scanlon said that because OSERS manages a $800 million fund, that we have to be transparent. And we had 2 different meetings regarding the hiring of one person for the volunteer position to provide recommendations to this board. And if you look at what the duties of CBOC is, they also will be providing recommendations to this board. And I think I have been contacted by one of the bigger labor unions here in Omaha who did speak like our guest speaker spoke, and also on Monday, a pastor who's very active in Omaha raised the same concern and sent me an email today. He had to attend church and could not come to speak on it. So I do think it's important that we are transparent, especially if we're talking about Citizen Oversight Committee. And when you look at what the total cost of this bond will be, it will be over $800 million. So I think when we establish a committee, it should be transparent and clear. And I just think in order to come back, we do a presentation and the board takes a unanimous position on, or if it's unanimous, on who those people are. We send a message that we're putting faith into this committee to be transparent and to oversee this committee. I think it's no different than OSERS, and we had a very transparent process. I think we need to at least give the public that process and who they are and how we got there. Thank you.
Okay, that wasn't on the agenda, so if we can just go through that process of getting that onto the agenda, that would be great. We'll go ahead and move on, and I think Ms. Williams wanted to make one comment before we...
I've said publicly that I'm really excited about this work, but this is something that I'm very interested in making sure the inclusion piece and the economic stimulus of our community is impacted by the work that we're doing. And so Ms. Gleitha and Ms. Gabrielle have touched base with me, and really I've done some research on them as well, and I'm just very proud to have them on this team. And although we may not agree on everything as this plan is being developed, from what I know, they've worked very hard and being diligent in the things that we've asked. And so I just really am happy with the work, and thank you for the presentation. And people that have worked with you have just talked about how much over the top you put so much passion into it, and you're so much willing to do it. You do it like this is your home, and those are some of the things that I've heard. So I just want to thank you for reaching out to me as I had asked at a previous board meeting. I really appreciate it, and please keep up the good work, and I'm looking forward to a full presentation.
Thank you again so much for bringing your expertise to the Omaha Public Schools, and for our staff as well, for being a participant in that. So thank you so much. We're going to move on, and we have 3 items here, J1C, J1D, and J1E, and I know that we have different presenters on those items, but if we could, I guess maybe think about the information that we present and move through that as quickly as possible so that we can get to questions, that would be great. I would hope that everybody's had a chance to look at the PowerPoints, but I will turn it over to, is it Dr. Kerber, are you the one, or Dr. Poole, probably for the first one? So the LEP and poverty plan reporting. So Dr. Poole is going to kick us off with this.
And I'm going to ask Jocelyn Perkins to join me here. This follows quickly on the heels of last board meeting's presentation regarding a funding reimbursement request, and we got into a couple areas that were not really addressed in that piece. Superintendent Evans suggests that we clarify some of the things that go into the limited English proficiency reporting and the poverty reporting, and some of the things that we're doing and have been doing now for about a year to get this going. Jocelyn has prepared some information. I want to just talk a couple things about state aid, and then we'll be quickly finished and ready for questions.
Just the PowerPoint.
Stare at it.
Also, while they're getting that up on the screen, we did also include some of the state guidelines regarding the reporting of those two state reports, so that's attached as an attachment as well.
Hi, my portion is about the plan requirements and the narrative. The plan specifically addresses the needs of economically disadvantaged students that qualify for free or reduced lunch, or limited English proficient, or those students who English is not their first language. There are 25 questions in the poverty plan, 13 in the LEP plan. Those questions have not changed since they started in 2009. The reporting requirements of the poverty plan are a function of the Nebraska statute 79-1013. The LEPs are 79-1014. Plans are submitted through use of the grants management portal with GMS, the Nebraska Department of Ed. Those text responses on the website are limited to 2,500 characters per question, including spaces, and districts have the opportunity to upload additional information. This district has opted to upload the whole document rather than go through each part of the web to attach a page for each question. Programs, staff, offerings, and basic evaluation has been reviewed and updated annually to demonstrate direct linkages with the components that the Nebraska Department of Ed requests, as well as our alignment with the strategic plan. Evaluations have also been conducted annually since 2009 by research to determine if the described interventions have had any impact on learning, and those reports are available for your review. And I also have a handout of the website so you can see the options for uploading.
And then I would just like to jump in a little bit. The process that we've been working with the Department of Education on has been going on almost a full year, when we realized that we were having these challenges with this reporting of the financial aspect of this. The learning community superintendents, in their filing of their report, you saw that, you were engaged with that, brought up in that first component of that we needed to improve poverty funding. And so that was the impetus that created a look-see at what poverty is already being reported by the media. And the comment came up, and I'm going to say that unfortunately we had a young state aid administrator at the Department of Education, and I'm afraid his choice of words didn't help any in the conversations, because the reality of this leaving money on the table, as it would, really is a part of the formula needs. And I have this slide up there because what happens is that the poverty and the LEP plans are only two of reports that go into the development of the formula needs in the state aid formula. And then, of course, the calculated resources, we receive our equalization aid. And so on the next slide, just to illustrate the complexity of this, we included that if you will look, the basic funding, the poverty allowance, the limited English proficiency allowance, we get into focus school program, which has had some revisions proposed today in the legislature, the summer school allowance, special seats, all of those are state reports that go into the state. They're all a component of the state aid process. The basic funding comes from our annual finance report, and the piece of this that I think creates this this misnomer that we're leaving money on the table is we're claiming legally what we can claim. And the penalties in this, of course, was very challenging. But the reality of it is, if you look at that very first component on this slide, basic funding, if we move dollars into poverty allowance for funding, it actually removes dollars from the basic funding. So it doesn't make any more dollars that we're spending. It simply moves it from the basic funding into the poverty funding. Now, could we increase that? Yes, and I think it was brought up that strategically, if you look at increasing early childhood programs with district funding, do other programs with district funding, the accountability pieces, are those programs making a difference? They are. It's reported in the plan. We are audited. We were audited this last April for this plan. So the piece of that continues to be an accountability piece, and so we have to make sure that we are in compliance with the laws as well. But we are moving forward. The district's strategic plan says we want to increase poverty. Well, we can do that. We can look at how we can choose that funding. We just have to make sure that as we move forward in those kinds of initiatives to get that additional funding, that we have a mechanism that we can report that funding that the state will accept. And that was the theme of the last board meeting's report. But there are reporting processes. We've been working with the Department of Education in the current reporting process format, and that's what last board meeting's presentation was about. Changes have been recommended by the learning community superintendents, and that also has been considered, and Senator Sullivan and the Education Committee have had an opportunity to look at that. Changes proposed in legislation, and I was just going through today's legislation that was introduced. Our own Senator Cook introduced LB 509 today, which would reduce the poverty penalty that we were concerned about from 50% to 5%. And it would also then prevent a school from being eliminated from receiving poverty funding if, in fact, they didn't meet that threshold, that audit. So we can also then go in and we can look at changing our accounting and finance software system, the PeopleSoft system. Please know that we do that. We would also incur some additional costs to amend that system. So we wanted to present this because these were some matters that were kind of left open in our presentation last board meeting. So we're available for any questions. Ms. Perkins and she does the narrative piece and works with staff to do that. And then the poverty and the LAP funding and expenditure reporting is on my side of the house as well. So any questions, I would be glad, or Jocelyn would be glad to answer.
You know, one of the things that Dr. Poole talked with us this last week, and I thought it would be important just to share that with the board, was just thinking about long-term planning. And so one of the questions I asked was, let's say we wanted to expand early childhood, and we were looking for, let's say, $10 million in poverty plan dollars. We could put that in to a forecast for 2 years out. We would also need to put into that same forecast approximately, not quite, $2 million of general fund dollars that would also supplement that. So I think it's just, as we're starting to plan for everything, it's one of those things to think about, but it's also an awareness that if you're doing that, you're also taking money out of general fund dollars as well to meet those requirements. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's just really important to understand that it wasn't just $15 million unattached strings. It would have also required us to pull money out of our general fund to do something in the future, but that doesn't mean we couldn't forecast for that for down the road.
And certainly would provide an opportunity to potentially expand your state aid revenue, but at the same point it would also require that you expand your expenditures to match that expansion. Yes.
So, Mrs. Fay.
I don't think I would explain it quite that way, because it's not that the percentage that has to come out of your general fund dollars is not money that you weren't already. When you have a district that's 73% poverty, chances are most of the money that you're spending in your general fund dollars are going to programs that aid students in poverty. So I guess I wouldn't explain it quite that way, but my question for this is really something that is in the presentation, and I think it says programs reviewed and updated annually to demonstrate linkages to plan components. And so it's just always what I always come back to when we're talking about dollars that are allocated specifically to programs for students in poverty, and that is in what way, what is the way that we know that those dollars are making a difference, that they're having an impact on student achievement. So what does that mean exactly? Programs reviewed and updated annually to demonstrate linkages to plan components.
And I'll allow Jocelyn to answer that question, but that evaluation is being done.
What it means is there are specific categories, and you have to address and align it with those categories. So when they ask about mobility, we know that there are SSLs that take care of mobility, attendance, and we have to align the staff so that we can charge those things that we believe assist with that. Those are reviewed each year. Now, if you're talking about the accountability, we definitely have a table of measurements at the end of the poverty plan and at the end of the LEP plan. Those are annually reviewed by research, and there is a report generated to make sure that we have made an impact with those specific interventions that we've used.
So what are you using to determine that? I mean, how do you determine that you've made an impact?
It depends on the category, and I'm just going to use parental involvement. For parental involvement, they use parent-teacher conference numbers. For attendance and mobility, they use average daily attendance.
Okay. So those are great examples, actually. I mean, that really helps me put it together. And then your first example of how you're making sure that the dollars spent are aligned with, I think linked is the word. So that's really helpful. But specifically to student achievement, are you able to get to that? Well, I understand there's many factors that contribute to student achievement. You can't narrow it down to one thing, but...
No, but absolutely. And again, the categories, I'll give you another example of a category where there's uninterrupted learning. So we look at what students are doing and, well, what instruction is doing to make sure that the time is uninterrupted, which is why we have such a long narrative, because we want to make sure that we have those data points in there to make sure that we're able to measure it at the end. And again, we have an evaluation for each year that we've been involved in the plan.
Okay.
Would you like to see them?
I think actually I have questions. You've sparked other questions that are probably more a part of the school improvement plan presentation, so I'll just hold them for that. But you've been really helpful. Thank you, both of you, very much.
Mr. Scanlon, are there...
I guess just kind of following on Marion's comments, there's two programs that I think help boost our student achievement, and I was curious on those two. Is there a way to track the effectiveness of funding for early childhood development education and the dual language on high poverty students?
Those kinds of research developments can certainly be done. Those assessments can be done. I mean, our research department, one of the things that we've been working towards as we work towards priority-based budgeting is also looking at being able to say that we can calculate an academic return on investment, and there is actually formula and methodologies to do those kinds of things, which would fit very well with those specific kinds of programs. And so I think as the district moves forward in trying to make decisions, as you said, is this really an effective intervention? Does it have effect? Are we accomplishing what we want to do with it? I think it'll be imperative that you have those kinds of measures so that you can prioritize what kinds of things you can fund and immediately have the most impact. So yes, they can be done. Do we do it currently? Specifically, I don't believe that we do.
Mr. Wayne.
So what the state requires is 117.5% of total, correct. I mean,
And if you do the mathematics on that, Mr. Wayne, that's just a reverse calculation that takes it up to 100%.
right. So what they're saying is if you put money, the state wants to make sure that their OPS has skin in the game, that they're not just giving us a blank check, that we're going to put money in. That's the general fund allocation that President Godding was talking about, which I think is correct. I think the issue that we're trying to deal with here is, and I'm going to use school terms without naming schools, but what are we doing different from a school with 10% poverty and a school with 95% poverty? Once you exclude Title I, you exclude private grants, you exclude magnet programs or any specialty programs, at the base level, what are we doing plus or added to reach those kids in poverty? And how are we tracking that? Because if we have a district of 73% free and reduced lunch, and we have some schools with 95%, 98%, I would think that we could track those dollars and we would be way over the amount that we could get in the poverty allowance. So even if we showed our expenditures at $100 million, we're still going to get the full amount we can get because we're so high poverty. So I guess there's two-part questions. One, what are we doing different money-wise? And two, are we tracking it? And three, if we are, isn't that a lot higher than what we would ever get in state aid because we have so much poverty anyway?
And therein lies the difficulty that we have, is being able to match a specific program or a particular staff member or an individual embedded professional development. And I will tell you that the current district school improvement plan addresses this because we're doing the coaching. That's embedded professional development. And we're doing that in our schools. And now, could I attribute that we're doing that because we're teaching our teachers and coaching our teachers and working with our administrators so that they can work on that achievement improvement plan? Absolutely. The problem that you have is what proportion of that is attributable to a poverty student in a school. That, Mr. Wayne, is my challenge.
Well, that seems to be, quite honestly, an accounting problem. But if we're going to say it takes more dollars and resources to educate a student from a poverty background, we have to demonstrate what that is. Yep. If it's extra tutoring, if it is coaching at a school with 100% or 98% poverty, then we put that in the poverty plan. But if they're at a school at 10%, then I don't think we can count that person per se. I mean, I think it's an accounting issue, but I don't think we should change the way we report because we can't account for how we're differentiating our learning of students of poverty. I think we need to figure out how to account for it, not change the reporting formula. I don't think it's fair to students. I don't think it's fair to the public to not be accountable for the extra dollars. So that's just my sense. If we're doing something different at a baseline level, and I can take two schools, Saddlebrook and Hartman, they're not magnet schools, but they have huge difference in poverty. I want to be able to tell my constituents, here's the plus programs we're doing at Hartman to address the achievement gap. And if I can't, that's a problem. That's a problem for us as a district. And I think we need to address it.
And I would just like to add, and I appreciate your concerns because it's absolutely the challenge that we've faced all along. One thing we have to remember, that as we look at this, again, from a financial and an accounting reporting process, and I hate to make this accounting and reporting process but that's what we have a problem with, is that we cannot count grants. And you mentioned two schools, and one of those schools, Saddlebrook, is not a Title I school, and Hartman, yes. And so we are spending additional money when we look at resources that are allocated to this district for those kinds of programs. They are. But the state of Nebraska in our reporting process would not let us report what we're spending in Title I. So if we have an extended school day and it's being paid for with Title I, additional tutoring that's being paid through the learning community, all those are legitimate expenses, and we can tell you what those are. But if the problem is an accounting problem, and in reporting those dollars and attributing them to specific activities, like we can do with the limited English proficiency, because I can tell you who the LEP teacher is. I can tell you what kinds of instructional materials you have, and so you've identified the problem exactly, and that's what we're trying to resolve.
Mrs. Fay.
Okay, first of all, I know other board members, previous boards accused me of making you earn your doctorate all over again, and I just want to say I'm sending you out strong, Dr. Poole. There's why in the world would you want to have a board meeting where you just got softballs, right, in your last board meeting? So I appreciate you answering the tough questions. But your answer to that question makes me ask, if you've got a school that's receiving grant dollars for tutoring for extended day, and are we saying then if we're not putting district poverty dollars into that school that's enough? We're saying, well, they've got this grant for extended day and this other grant for tutoring, so it seems to me we ought to, taking the example that Justin gave, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing in addition to those baseline dollars to close that achievement gap, and we have a grant for tutoring, and we have a grant for extended day, not instead of. And that's sort of what I heard you say.
And that's correct. That's correct. And the piece of that would be that I would have to acknowledge is it comes back, and again, it would come back to me from the standpoint that I and my team have been unwilling to face the risk of reporting things that we could put those expenditures in. Could we put part of the teachers themselves in that poverty plan? The district's paying for those teachers. Could we do that? Yes, I believe you could. And that you could put part of your instructional materials into that poverty accounting piece. Move them out of your general fund, regular instruction, and move them into poverty instruction. You could do that. And that's a risk, because the risk has been if the state were to audit us and we were to track those expenditures and they were to say, though those aren't appropriate alignments back to what the written report is, then we would face those penalties. And as a finance administrator, I've not been willing to take that risk.
But previously we had, right? Is this the...
But we had, because the programming that we did for magnet school programming, when we had our student personnel assistants, the program we had to put those out in the schools, when we had the academy programming that we did, the academy school programs, the extra teachers, when we were at 54% poverty and 55% poverty, those dollars matched pretty well with what the state calculated that we should be able to put into our needs formula. But as our poverty level has creeped up, this problem has become more and more dramatic in that we don't have the expenditures for those programs that we do have in place and that we are reporting, just don't accumulate to the same total in formula needs as what the formula would say you could apply for if you could get that student count at the 73%. And that's the obstacle that we're facing. That's the accounting problem that we're facing. That's the alignment problem that we're facing that we have to work to overcome. Now, it's a matter of, could we do that? And I suspect if the superintendent and the board directed us to do that, we could. My concern for us is that if a school district's going to get audited, I will guarantee you it will be the Omaha Public Schools.
Mr. Wayne?
I just have one more quick thing, and I think this is more directed to the board. If we were making a budget cut of $20 million, $15 million, it would be a board decision. And we would have to go out and explain to voters why we're cutting our budget. Every year we vote to raise our taxes or lower our taxes, and it's a board decision. And all I'm saying is I don't think this decision should lay on the superintendent or the CFO, that when it comes to budgeting, my understanding of the board role is that we approve the budget. And if that means there's decreases, we need to have a conversation. I just want to make sure, because this is water under the bridge and this is kind of new to everybody. I just want to make sure all funding that affects our budget, and we're talking 15, I've calculated with the summer school and the growth projections around 24, we need to have a full conversation and understanding of that as a board before that decision's made and sent to the state. So I just want to make sure we have policies in place as a board that if there's decisions that's going to affect our budget by whatever percentage this board thinks, we need to make sure it comes before the board for the vote, because we're the ones who are going to have to deal with that. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Evans, and then I think we'll be wrapped up.
Thank you, President Gotting. I do think it's an issue, too, and Dennis and I have talked about it over the last 4 or 5 months, trying to figure out a way to make this work, which is part of why the last meeting he brought back a different formula that would give you an ability to claim all of what you should receive from NDE without the draconian measures that could be offered. And so that's what I had tasked him to work on. So that's part of what I had asked him to do, is how can we make sure we're getting every penny that our young people deserve, because we do have more needs, which is what you said, and I totally agree with that statement too. And I think the principals who are in the audience would probably say, you're right, I could spend more money. I see Boris smiling. I think he could spend more money in a heartbeat. So I think figuring out how we do that has been a task the last 4 months. And I don't think we're there yet. I think the legislation helps us by taking that 5% versus 50% and then 100% on that draconian measure. If you're put into a situation where the audit doesn't come out, and I understand his conservative nature on that as an accountant, but I'm like you. I don't want to leave a penny on the table, because I know the gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen I'm looking at who are principals in the audience, they know how to spend that money, and they are making a difference. And the big thing is, to me, is accountability. It's kind of not where you spent the money, it's did it make a difference. That's what you're looking for. Is student achievement, are the outcomes that are in your strategic plan, are they being met? So that's kind of my statement on that, and I think we're moving in the right direction with NDE, legislators, all of that group, and I think this is going to be something that's resolved in this legislature. In reference to approving all the programs that are turned in to NDE, to the feds, I would caution the board, because we can do that, but E-rate alone is a stack of documents like that, and that amounts to millions of dollars. Title I, $28 million, a stack of documents about that big. IDEA and all the special ed funding, another stack of documents, millions of dollars. Nutrition services, I mean, the list goes on and on. This is kind of one area, and there's a whole litany of those areas that staff's responsible to turning in huge documentation to NDE, the federal government. We can run all of those through the board, but it will be a pretty massive endeavor. I've not seen boards do that in the past. Usually it's, if it's not working well, let's come back and talk about it and make sure it is working better, which is kind of what we're doing here. How do we make this better? This is something new to me, new in the last 4 or 5 months. So I know we're addressing it now, but I know, for example, E-rate, we've changed some reporting structures, and we're now going to receive the most E-rate we've ever received, and part of it's because we've got some technology leadership changes that knew how to claim E-rate better. So we had some work to do there. I know that we're looking at Medicaid spending and how we do Medicaid claiming, and we're going to receive more money from Medicaid than we've ever received in this district's history, because we're looking at the processes. So there are a litany of issues. This is kind of one of a litany of them. I want you to feel confident that we are addressing, we're looking at, we're concerned, I'm concerned, and we're turning over every stone that we can, and this is one, too, that's a stone that needs to be turned over, and how do we make it better? So I appreciate the conversation, Madam President.
Great. With that, we're going to move on to J1D. Thank you, Dr. Poole. You got your last chance to come up and give us a presentation. So we won't make you stay for closed session, but although Ms. Merica would really like you to, she believes it's tradition, but we're gonna give you a pass on it, I think. So J1D, and let's try to move along here.
Well, I'd like to invite the team who will be presenting that today, and they will stick with the slides so we can get through that pretty quickly.
Okay, they're carrying a lot of paper, so please tell me that.
Here's the good news. They're only going to reference that we have it if you're interested in looking at it. So It will
Awesome.
not be paper that has gone through. So, well, the backbone of change in a school is the improvement plan that school puts together. And what we want to do is share with you what's our past history, what changed 3 years ago, what are we currently doing in school improvement, and what are we going to do in the future. And to do that, we have Mrs. Canyon Chisholm. She's coordinator of elementary education, works directly with Mrs. Donna Dobson, our director, and she's also managing school improvement planning at the elementary level. And we have delighted to have Mr. Anthony Clark Kasmerick, who's coordinator directly under Susan Christofferson, and that is in the Division of Secondary Education, and he manages school improvement for secondary. And then we have 3 amazing principals and an executive director, and they'll get introduced to you, but I'll just highlight it's Mr. Ed Bennett, principal at Central High School, Mr. Steve Eubanks, principal at King Science Center, Mrs. Carrie Hutcherson, principal at Kellam Elementary, and then Melissa Comine, one of our executive directors. So with that, I think perhaps Canyon, you are first, and then Mr. Bennett after that. Or CK,
No, it's
whomever.
great.
I will immediately turn it over
Yeah.
to Mr. Anthony Clark.
Thank you for your time. We're going to move through the PowerPoint, and you'll see it here in just a moment. We do thank you very much for allowing us to take a few minutes with you. We're going to let the individuals who are working with the school improvement planning do most of the speaking today. And I'm going to let Canyon introduce them as we go here, and we'll just kind of get started. So thanks again for letting us do this.
Okay, so Dr. Kerberg just introduced them, but just very quickly, if you would just stand for us, all of you. We certainly appreciate them taking their time to come out and spotlight what they're doing, especially at their own schools with school improvement planning. So again, we have Miss Dr. Ed Bennett right here, Mr. Steve Eubanks from King Science and Central High School, Miss Carrie Hutcherson from Kellam, and then Melissa Comine, who works directly with our principals as an executive director of school support. And at this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Bennett.
Thanks, Canyon. Over the last several years, OPS achievement has been consistently going up, but that has not always been the case, as you know. But prior to 2012-2013, achievement scores were inconsistent and relatively unsteady. In fact, one of the reasons for the decline was the lack of an effective district-wide school improvement process that focused on best instructional practices and key elements for continuous school improvement. During this time, school improvement plans were bulky, they were complicated, difficult for building leaders and staff to understand, relatively time-intensive, and inconsistent. Building leaders would spend hours completing an online form that could total between 16 to 25 pages and, when complete, would still be difficult to work with. The plans were rarely referenced and highly bureaucratic and bore little resemblance to what was actually happening in schools. This disconnect was at least partially to blame for declining test scores that were publicized by the Omaha World Herald. 8th grade CAT scores in particular were dropped precipitously during the 2010-2011 school year. A July 2009 article in the World Herald highlighted the achievement gap between white and African American students. An August 2010 article also found the new state reading tests told a grim story about reading performance in OPS and in schools statewide. When the old school improvement planning process was in place, each building was able to determine the focus of their plan and the metrics that would be used to determine success. There was no system for determining standard, consistent goals across the district. One building might choose to focus on tardies, another might choose attendance, another might select a goal of decreasing office referrals, and still another might choose to focus on increasing parent engagement or attendance at school events. While these are all important school goals, not one of these example schools selected a goal directly related to school achievement, using achievement data as a measure of growth. There was no consistency in how goals should be selected or what metrics should be used to determine growth. Schools received little to no support in completing their plans, and there was no process in place to provide the type of support buildings might need in order to complete their plans effectively. There was also no effective process for providing feedback to buildings once a plan was complete or throughout the year, and buildings did not know whether or not their plan met, exceeded, or failed to meet the standards of the school improvement process. We did receive a form letter from the superintendent's office, but it did not provide specific feedback on standardized metrics or goals.
And I'm going to just continue to talk about the school improvement planning history. At one time, there was an Excel steering committee, and I happened to be on that steering committee for about a year. And that committee was a group of principals met. We met on a monthly basis, and we had conversations around school improvement processes and the effectiveness of the school improvement plans. Although we had great conversations, many times we left feeling like there was no true outcomes or no next action steps to align with our conversations. So in 2011-12, at principal's request, this committee was disbanded. But the principal's voice was still heard. Principals still shared their thoughts and concerns about the school improvement plans. As stated earlier, the plans were too bulky, too time-consuming, and just not effective. So it really took the leadership of curriculum instruction and assessment to develop an action plan as a way of providing a more friendly, effective way to increasing student achievement with research-based practices district-wide. One of the things that principals were most pleased with, including myself, was the academic action plan. Got some banner work going on over here.
Yeah.
So in 2011-12, the academic action plan was created to increase student success for 12-13 school year and was embedded into the new school improvement plan format.
Yeah. Just hit the down.
Okay. Once this new process was put in place, there was a huge shift that happened. Principals no longer looked at their school improvement plans as a dreaded task, but more as an actionable process to increasing student achievement. So revisions to the school improvement planning have continued, but we believe that the current plan works and it allows for academic growth. So the slide you're looking at right now, it's what's working nationally, and you're seeing the, you're seeing the components of school improvement planning. It's what's working nationally, and it's what's working right now in the Omaha Public Schools. So what are the components? It's embedding the academic action plan into school improvement plans with research and evidence-based key elements of continuous school improvement planning. What are the key elements? It's high-performing instructional leaders. This is principal development. This is our EDs working with our principals. This is constant focus on our PD. And we, in our principal meetings, we get turnkey presentations. We turn around, we present that to our teachers. We coach them through the process of them embedding it into the classrooms.
We do have examples of those turnkeys if you're interested in seeing some of those.
It's high-quality district-wide instructional framework. This is the Academic Action Plan Instructional Practices Handbook. And we brought samples for each of you to have, if you'd like, and keep. This is my instructional go-to. It's my instructional Bible. It's what I pull out every day when I'm talking to teachers about teaching and learning. And I refer to the instructional best practices on the inside. It's professional development plan of support and coaching for teachers that is job embedded. This is our coaching framework. As according to Showers and Joyce, it's the coaching that makes the significant impact on implementation of best practices. It's data-driven system of assessment to inform and improve instruction. This is looking at our acuity, our suspension, and our referral data. And we look at this on an ongoing basis. It's a set of district-defined non-negotiable goals for achievement and instruction. These are our standardized growth goals. These are goals that every school, when they submit their school improvement plan, they have these embedded on the inside. These goals are supported by our wonderful research department, and I want to acknowledge our research department. They calculate these goals for each building using the federal government NCLB algorithm, Safe Harbor. It's a governing body, our superintendent, our school board, that prioritizes resources to impact student achievement, like priority-based budgeting and alignment to the strategic plan.
I've got some points here that are going to be, that have already been stated, but I think repeated for points of emphasis. Research shows that bulky, overwhelming, high format plans are not good for schools. They're not accessible. The leaders are not able to really have impact and hit the ground running, and it truly shows less in terms of student achievement. The low format plans that we currently use right now, easily accessible. Our staff are able to get a hold of them. They're easy to revise. They're really working documents. If a change needs to go in, it happens right then and there. And it's easy to get feedback from CIA, from our executive directors, and it's easy to support in the buildings. High-performing districts have a hybrid plan, and once again, this is comes from research, Marzano and Waters and Schmoker, but truly when you think about it, it makes sense that there needs to be some building choice. Not everything coming down that this is what you have to do. Each building is unique. Each building has their own goals that they want to set for themselves in order to meet the needs of the kids. The hybrid plan is really what it's all about, and it's what we're using right now. So it truly comes down to what are the specific components of the school improvement plan. The first, standardized metrics. How do we know we're improving? What do we want to measure? And this is clearly defined. It's district and building choice growth goals. It's NISA growth goals. Math, science, reading, writing. And then there are other building goals as well, including graduation rates, attention rates, behavior or climate. And as Ms. Hutcherson said, all of these goals are calculated specifically for each school in each particular area by using Safe Harbor. So the second thing is we've got our goals set. How do we develop the teachers to make them better? How do we make sure that they're implementing the plan? And that has to do with professional development, year-long. And this comes where the hybrid plan comes in. It's two months of district mandated, the vision that's there. We want common language. We want every school to focus on these instructional best practices. The other 8 have to do with building choice. What's unique about King Science? What can I do? What are the areas of concern that we want to improve? And this plan really allows that. But it truly is year-long, and there are regular looks at data. Data is our friend, because that's how we know if we're on course, if we're on the plan to make a difference. So, third part, we know what we're measuring. We're improving the instruction of our teachers through professional development. And I'm going to use one of Mr. Evans' famous sayings. He always says, if it didn't happen in the classroom, it didn't happen. How do we know that this professional development is making a difference? It's the third component. It's coaching. It's the instructional leaders getting in the classrooms and identifying those instructional best practices. These two people here to my left, Ms. Chisholm and Mr. C.K., have developed 5 different opportunities throughout the year to help train us to be better instructional leaders in terms of coaching. So throughout the year, 80 administrators have gone through this training, and over 400 other instructional leaders. Those are your assistant principals, your deans, your instructional facilitators, so on and so forth. So it gets us in the classrooms. It helps us provide positive feedback on the instructional best practices that we're seeing, and it truly leads to reflective conversations that we have with the teachers that make a difference in student achievement.
Part of the district's responsibility in the school improvement planning process is to first review the plan, provide feedback, provide support, and then also hold schools accountable for implementing the process and then also the results of the process. And since the district uses a low format hybrid plan, It's easier for the district to provide that feedback and support on a more frequent and ongoing basis. And that support is provided through CIA, it's provided through the executive directors, and it's also provided by having the gold and silver awards that are available to schools who meet those growth goals. The feedback process starts early in the school year. It begins with initial review completed by the school improvement coordinators. They review the plans and they make sure that all the necessary components are part of that plan. And then in October, CIA brings in their entire department and they complete an in-depth comprehensive review of each individual school's plan. And when they're looking at that plan to do that comprehensive review, they're looking at the goal areas, they're looking at the focus skills, they're looking at the strategies, how are we going to measure this plan, and what is the professional development that needs to be provided to teachers in order to make this plan work and have fidelity and then yield those results. The school improvement plan process, the comprehensive review, it's not just one person looking at the plan. It is a set of 4, 5, and 6 different people. So a team of people looking at each individual plan and coming up with that feedback, and then also designing that support. At that time, CIA meets with the executive directors, and in collaboration, we determine what is the best way to provide that feedback, to provide that support to the buildings. And after that is determined, then that information is taken to each individual building, and the luxury behind that is each building can receive that differentiated support. Differentiated support comes in a variety of ways. It might be a difference in frequency, it might be different types of visits, it might be actually sitting down and helping them tweak part of their plan, implement part of their plan, but also monitor their plan as well. And then after that feedback is received, that ongoing frequent support, monitoring, and feedback is on a consistent basis throughout the entire school year. One of the things that I would like to mention, an extra support that our principals are going to receive this summer, is a 2-day Summer Principal Institute. That is going to be new for our principals this year, and it is going to completely focus on that school improvement planning process, and so we are excited about that. Another important piece is that accountability piece. Teachers are held accountable, but principals are held accountable, and we're all held accountable because we are all responsible for the achievements of all of our students in all of our buildings. One way schools are held accountable and principals are held accountable is through the principal appraisal process. And we do take a look at the success that a school has had throughout the school year at the end of the year, and that does help inform decisions on that principal appraisal process. If you were to look at that principal appraisal process, there's 4 different domains, and all of those domains support the school improvement planning process. If you specifically look at domain 1, which is student achievement and engagement, it is loaded with the school improvement planning process. And then that domain 2 really helps with that professional development because it focuses in on that teacher and staff development and growth. And then finally, again, I would like to mention that schools are recognized at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year in August for their previous year's growth through the different criteria, through the gold and silver awards and honorable mention.
So we're hoping then to bring it all together. At the beginning, we were talking about the history of school improvement planning and what were known as the Excels plans. And we talked to you a little bit about that history, and then we moved into what's going on now, and we talked and let these individuals tell you exactly how it works, how they're created, how they're developed, how they're reviewed, and how we keep track. And now these next few slides that we're going to show you are really where the rubber hits the road. It's where the data comes together for us. And I want to remind you of what was being said before and just kind of show you some things. So this slide here showing you 3 schools, RM Mars, Miller Park, and Gilder. What we're looking at here are test scores that have resulted in above predicted scores. So we looked at regression analysis, again thank you to the research division, to identify where, based on the school, where that school is expected to meet in terms of that test score. And schools like Mars and Miller Park and Gilder are in 3 categories above the predicted score, and in most of those categories, multiple digits. And this is just a sampling. In multiple cases, you're seeing schools beating the odds. And they're beating the odds because these plans they're living, they're changeable, they're something that the school can adjust, and because they are being followed up with feedback from CIA, feedback from executive directors, constant work and adjustment. Again, I'm going to just reference what Ms. Comine did in the gold and silver awards. You can see in 12-13 there were 6 gold awards. In 13-14 there were 16. And those gold awards represent schools that are achieving 5% or greater in 3 state-tested areas, or 90% or greater overall. And then we had 18 silver awards and 22 in 13-14. So again, you can see that growth in that short time that we've had those awards. And also, if you just look at the assessments, you'll see that we have higher scores than we've had in years past in those 3 assessments, reading, math, and science. They're the highest they've been. And so you can see the increase as it progresses.
And just to take a closer look at that increase, just look at the reading. Double digits. Math, we see the same thing over the course of time that we've been working on our school improvement planning. Writing, great growth. And the same thing in science.
Yeah, go ahead.
The slide references ACT scores, but I wanted to take a moment just to talk briefly about a little bit of history that I have. I know with working with Dr. Kerberg. When I started, I first met Dr. Kerberg when I went to a meeting in 2002, I believe. I was working at Bryan High School as a curriculum specialist. And I think I learned more in one meeting about curriculum instruction and assessment from Dr. Kerberg in that meeting than I probably learned in my master's preparation course. And I thought, well, that's one person I need to get to know a little bit better. So I was able to work with her at Buffett once for a year, and then I got moved to Central. But I knew at the time from conversations with her that what needed to be done in our school districts was not happening, but that when we would go to ASCD conferences and listen to Doug Reeves and listen to Robert Marzano, the heavy hitters in terms of instruction and assessment, we needed to do those things. And she would go to those conferences too and come back and actually implement those things at Buffett Middle School. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could do that district-wide? Well, guess what? It's happening. It has happened. We have a common language. We have increasing test scores. I am not at all surprised that scores are going up. And guess what? They're going to continue to go up. I thought it was very telling when Cross and Joftis came in, and the one thing they did, one thing that they looked at, they did a curriculum audit, and they looked at the action plan. And what did they say? They said it was the best they'd ever seen, or something like that. So there are a lot of things, there are a lot of problems with our district. This is not one of them. Scores are going up. We're all the beneficiaries of that. If scores were not going up, if ACT scores were not going up, if graduation rate was not going up, there's no way a bond issue passes. There's no way that we get the Chamber of Commerce and the Omaha World Herald on our side. There's no way you can sit there and respond to your constituents and say, guess what? We passed a $421 million bond issue. It does not happen without achievement. So I'm not surprised this is happening. I will continue to be unsurprised as scores will continue to go up as long as we adhere to the plan. With the slide, it talks about increasing ACT scores. The 4-year graduation rate, we're averaging a growth of 2.58% per year and 12.8% or 12.84% over the past 10 years. And you can see, I don't have to talk with words about the achievement gap. It's obvious on the slide. What might be most remarkable is our achievement, our graduation rate of our Hispanic students from in 2002-03 from 44.8% to 2013-14 at 78.1%. It's unbelievable. It's remarkable. It's a credit to the teachers of our district, the administrators who've worked very, very hard to change instruction in classrooms, to build relationships with kids, and to make their achievement possible.
We are very proud of this, what you see here, and I know you've had a chance to look through these slides. And so when we're comparing our graduation rate that Dr. Bennett just talked about, you can see where we rank with like districts. Second, now we are very optimistic and hoping, since our graduation rate improved again last year, because this chart is with last year, the previous year's data, The new chart will come out very, very soon, and we are hoping that we will reign supreme and be on the top, #1, this next year with our increase in our graduation rate. Dr. Kerber?
Well, in terms of whether or not we are there yet, and I'll get that turned on, we know there's additional steps, and we know we're still on the road to continuing to improve, and we think the executive directors are a key part of that, because what they'll allow us to do is have that additional level of accountability and support at the building level, so you really can look at which schools aren't making those gains and what can be done differently based on specific work with that principal and the executive director. We want to continue to replicate best practices from one school to the next. Last year we did a half-day workshop on that topic. It's going to be a part of our summer 2-day workshop so that we can actually take the best practices that are working at Miller Park and Gilder and other locations, and they're doing it at a heightened, deeper level of implementation, and share that with others. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is there's some areas, just to be very candid, that we're not there yet, and one is in mathematics. We think we're stagnant in our growth at middle and high school level, so we created a comprehensive plan to increase mathematics this year, and we have implemented it at the deepest level possible at our middle schools and high schools, and also been supporting our elementaries. It's a 15 to 20-page document with specific steps for principals to take in increasing math achievement. So we want to recognize that. Have we started? Yes. Are we there yet? No. Will we get there? Yes, absolutely, because we're on the right track. We will have, following this, a deeper level of school improvement plan implementation. We're doing at our highest need schools identified by No Child Left Behind. That's called restructuring, but that concludes our general school improvement plan presentation, and we have staff available to answer questions.
I'm just wondering if we should go into the next one and then do all of our questions. Would everybody be okay with that, or do you want to do separate questions? Are you okay if we go to the next? How about if you, they tie together, so be prepared that you may get asked questions here as we go to the second one. So let's go to the second presentation, and then we'll try to see if we can do all these questions maybe at the end of that.
They really do tie together, and I'd like to invite Tina Forte, our Director of Title I, and then we have our Indian Hill team here. Mrs. Sharon Royers is the principal, as well as Assistant Principal Jennifer Shalapia, Chris Pullman, Instructional Facilitator. A new school going into restructuring is Monroe, and that's Mr. Boris Moore, who's also here. And then from the State Department of Education, Mr. Randy McIntyre, who does the compliance for Title I for the state of Nebraska. So that's our group. And I don't know if Mrs. Forte's had a chance to get the slide up yet, but I know she's starting with the big picture of No Child Left Behind planning for restructuring year 4. And
I'll go ahead and get started as we...
I'll go ahead and just, if you're looking on your computers, it's the blue PowerPoint. It looks like this, if that helps you. It's the first attachment on the agenda, if that helps you pull it up.
I'm going to go ahead and get started because it's just, will show up here shortly here. First of all, thank you for the first presentation because definitely it's a nice segue. As our scores are moving up in our school district, and we're also seeing an increase of poverty, unfortunately we must follow the guidance under No Child Left Behind. And currently it's not being reauthorized, so we have to follow the sanctions. And as you know, for schools that are not following 100% at adequate yearly progress 2 years back to back, they now fall into needs improvement. And so when we transition into needs improvement, the sanctions or the requirements include school choice for parents to select schools that are not in needs improvement, additional professional development, supplemental educational services, corrective action plan, and restructuring plan, or beginning the planning for restructuring. That year is year 4. And for the sake of time, that is our focus under No Child Left Behind as we reference our requirements. Again, I'd like to thank Mr. Randy McIntyre, who is here from NDE. He is a consultant, and we work closely with the state. Also like to thank our principals that are here this evening, Ms. Sharon Royers from Indian Hill, Ms. Jennifer Schlapia, assistant principal, and Ms. Chris Pullman, instructional facilitator, and Mr. Boris Moore from Monroe. So with that, I'm going to call upon Dr. Kerberg to talk about restructuring options under the law.
As Tina looks at the second slide, we're focusing on school improvement year 4, because that's a restructuring year. And if you're interested in what schools are in what year of needs improvement, there's 2 additional attachments you have that list those schools for you and list the activities they're engaged in, and they're following the PowerPoint. 50% of all school districts in the state now are in needs improvement. As a result of that, we're not alone in terms of schools going into planning for restructuring. Just a quick view of what the options are for restructuring from the federal government. And as we look at restructuring options, and I'm going to need, Chris, can you flip the slides for me? Okay. No Child Left Behind, option 1, is simply that you replace, not simply, but it is a turnaround model where we replace all or most of the school staff, which may include the principal. We've highlighted an example when Lincoln Public Schools did this with a principal at Elliott Elementary. And then you go to option number 2, private contractor could be brought in to operate the school. An example we provided to you was Edison Schools did this years ago in Philadelphia, as well as other locations, just as an example. Option number 3, the state education agency takes over, and this has happened in Chicago, New York, Baltimore, lots of examples where that has occurred across the United States. And then option number 4, which is the one we'll be talking about, it's defined as implement any other major restructuring plan to increase or change school improvement. So the first step was getting that approved by the Nebraska Department of Education, and that did occur. So I think Mr. McIntyre, is he this slide? He is not. I have finished my slides, so I will let Tina cover the next ones.
So now that we are implementing the restructuring plan at Indian Hill, and we are now in the phase 4 for those 21 upcoming schools. We have 21 schools that have been identified by the state that are now in needs improvement year 4. So they are in that phase of working on their plan. And so we're going to call upon Boris Moore, the principal at Monroe, and he's going to talk to you about this development process. And the plan is a very intensive, rigorous, academic plan. I guess to define it, it is our academic plan on steroids. So at this time, I'm going to call upon Mr. Moore, if you can share with the board your experiences with that planning.
I apologize for my voice. I've been a little under the weather today. But I'm going to say, as we move from corrective action into restructuring, what it's done, like you heard from my peers earlier, the district action plan has really given us a laser-like focus. With our corrective action, we've had to send in documents to Tina Forte's office, tracking our PD, tracking our coaching visits, tracking all those things that we know are best practices. As we move towards restructuring, pretty much the same thing. We're submitting all the documentation to show that what our staff's doing, how many staff members are receiving professional development, you name it, we submit that documentation. It really, like I said, has given us such a laser-like focus on what we do. As we're moving into restructuring, we're bringing together our staff, our parents. They have a say in this plan that we're implementing. Dr. Kerberg's office has been phenomenal in providing the structure. Being in a building is so busy. It's busy, so many things that you have to do, you have to accomplish, and supporting families. But it's provided a structure. which is, how would I put it, scaffolding, where we can just go through this process and it scaffolds for us so well. Some other things, it ensures that the schools remain focused on using best instructional practices by the researchers that you heard my peers mention, district support for that plan, and just making sure that we're sharing information from those schools that are having those successes and schools that are having challenges are able to use those practices. That's all I have, Tina, and I'm prepared to answer any questions when they're ready.
We now will call upon Mr. Randy McIntyre, and again, he's a consultant with NDE. He's going to share with you a little bit about the checklist and the district responsibilities under the restructuring plan year 4.
I'm hesitant to say that I'm from the Nebraska Department of Education after some of the comments earlier, but certainly we have a responsibility to make sure that certain requirements are met, and one of those items that we have to deal with No Child Left Behind are certainly this idea of school improvement. With that in mind, there are those schools that, because of the length of time that No Child Left Behind hasn't been reauthorized, they're still there, and the requirements become more and more difficult for schools and school districts to be I guess to deal with some of the issues that they have to deal with. Indian Hill has already gone through that process. As Dr. Kerberg had mentioned, that plan was approved, and it was nice that the school improvement group was ahead of us because they really outlined a lot of the pieces that are in place for all schools and have done a really nice job. So my main concern would be to make sure that the federal requirements are being met in all the buildings, and no matter at what level they are. Restructuring to us is to make fundamental reforms which have substantial promise to improve academic achievement. And certainly with the use of data, good instructional leadership, and the professional development pieces that were already been mentioned, that's likely to happen. And I think most importantly, the data looking at the improvement was certainly there. So as far as the main thing then is that they have a requirement to come up with a school improvement plan or a restructuring plan, and during this planning year they have to make sure that they get input from parents and the instructors and teachers in the building, and to come up with a plan that all the stakeholders have an involvement with in trying to make the right decisions as far as how they can improve the student scores. And as is mentioned, I think in previous, the NISA scores, which are the Nebraska Student Achievement Test scores in reading and math and writing, are the ones that are part of the adequate yearly progress. So those are the ones that drive these decisions. And if they don't make adequate yearly progress, then ultimately they end up advancing on this required list of activities that they need to do to actually end up in restructuring. Because it hasn't been reauthorized, these guidelines and requirements and restrictions have hit some of the schools in the state. There are now 265 schools in the state out of approximately 500 that are Title I, and so it's pretty significant. The Omaha Public Schools, in our conversations with them about what they're trying to do for restructuring, have been very professional. I think their plans have been rigorous and have been well put together, and there's a lot of thought and effort that has gone into developing plans that they think will be successful. So we're pleased that they're working hard, and with 21 schools at that juncture, there's a lot more planning and effort that will need to go into meeting those requirements. So thank you.
We now call upon the Indian Hill leadership team, if you will come forward, and this is their year 6 and needs improvement. So they are implementing their restructuring plan.
Good evening, and I'm Sharon Royers. I am the principal at Indian Hill. I'm here with two of the leaders from our school, my instructional facilitator, Chris Pullman, and assistant principal, Jen Schlapey. And I'm going to step aside and let them present our story and talk about the process that we've been through to create this rigorous restructure plan. But before I do, I just want to make a few comments about our school. Indian Hill is not a failing school. We have refused to wear that label that the federal No Child Left Behind law has tried to put on us. We have complied with the law and gone above and beyond, actually. And someone once said that labels only confine us. And I want it said that Indian Hill has never, ever let the needs improvement label confine us or define us. Everything that my staff has developed and worked together to create this restructure plan was based on years of professional development and reflection as a whole group, as a staff. We didn't just do this last year when we were required by the law. And the other thing I really want to point out is everything that we've done, if there was no Child Left Behind law, we would have done this. This restructure plan is good, research-based instructional practice, and it's what's right for our kids. And so we would have done this process either way, and I wanted you to know that. But now I will turn it over to my capable leadership staff who will tell you what we did.
And again, I'm Jen Schlepe. I'm the assistant principal at Indian Hill, and this is my 8th year at Indian Hill, and so I've seen quite a change amongst the process of going through this entire plan. So with that said, the restructure plan process at Indian Hill was created by an entire team. It wasn't just the 3 of us by any means. We had an entire team that helped us create this entire plan. And so without the help of everybody who was involved, we would not be as successful as we are today. So we're going to let some of our data show our success, and then I'll get into our actual process of our plan.
So one of the very first things that we did was look at what we were already doing. And what we were already doing was reflected through the data in its success. So if you notice, as we've said several times tonight, the data has shown our results going up across the district, but also for Indian Hill. So from the year starting in 2009 all the way to 2013, you could see the continued success in reading, in math, and in science, and then in writing. And if we added to the scores from last year, you would continue to see those success trends: 57% in reading, 52% in math, a substantial gain in science, up to 38% success. And like most of the elementary schools, or many, we did have a decline in our writing scores. And so one of the things, we actually went down in writing to 58%. But one of the things I think that this plan talks about, and it matches up perfectly with this, is that that's what we paid attention to then. We said, what happened? And that's the kind of thing that you do when you write the restructure plan. You say, what's really good and what do we need to improve on? And so that's sort of what we did. We see the 4th grade writing data here spelled out a little more clearly, where we had continued to see that trend going up. One of the issues with 4th grade writing data was really that the test changed. We needed to look at some of what we were doing as well, but we also needed to consider how the test had changed. So that was part of the data issue there.
At the very beginning of our restructure plan process, we were really given no template. We were starting from scratch. We were given a checklist of items that we needed to make sure we pinpointed on, and then we had to develop the plan from there. So as we saw this as a blessing and a curse, as a blessing, we were able to be creative and kind of reflect onto what we were already doing that we knew was right and we knew was working for our kids because we were seeing achievement. So we were shooting in the dark, and so we looked on the internet. We were trying to find different plans to kind of give us an idea of where to begin, because there really was no starting point. And when we found out, there was really nothing for us to go by. And so we did start creating our own structure. And the 3 of us sat down, and it wasn't a very pretty process to start with, but we sat down and we brainstormed for hours of things and headings that we wanted to really pinpoint that really showed and highlighted what we did best at Indian Hill. And so as we got the bare bones down on paper, then we immediately went to a core member of our staff, which was our grade level leaders. So we had a representative of every grade level, at our very first meeting. And those teachers were then given our bare bones of what we had brainstormed about and all the things that we could think of that we were doing right at Indian Hill. Those teachers then knocked our socks off and continued to add things to this plan. Well, we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing this, that it, showed great achievement on all of the acuity scores we were doing and all of our NISA scores. And so those teachers then added in their input. From there, those teachers went and spread the word to all the other teachers, and we met as an entire group. So there were about 5 meetings of the core group, which was all of our grade level leaders and then our administrative team, instructional leadership. And then we went to 3 whole staff meetings where we had paraprofessionals involved, we had the rest of the teachers involved, and then we also had 3 parent input meetings where parents were able to look at what we had down on paper, give their input, added more things that they saw that we were doing at Indian Hill that they wanted it to be recognized in our plan also. So we were given bare bones that turned into this beautiful, beautiful project. And when we first started off with this, you feel like it's a punitive, it's a punishment. And after putting all the sewing together and making the plan come alive, we realized that this formed us as a cohesive unit in Indian Hill, and it brought us all closer together. It, like Boris said, it gave us laser focus onto what was going on that was right at Indian Hill and what we needed to continue on in our plan. And so as the plan was written and sent in, and the Title I office, Dr. Kerberg, everyone has been so supportive with the plan. Several headings were put into place. And I'm not going to read through all of it because it's a long plan and there is a lot of information in that entire plan. But as you can see in each section of the headings, it's always showing that we were doing something, but yet we're increasing what we were already doing. So we always kept putting forth more effort into what was already going on that was right. The one major new thing that we did add to the plan that was not in anything we had done before was student-led conferences, and our parents thought that was going to be a great idea. We've had 90% or higher parent participation rate at all of our parent-teacher conferences, so we wanted to make sure that their voice was heard with this also and have their kiddos be a part of what's being presented to them. Go to the next one. So in all being said, the plan was submitted. It definitely made us a unified group, and we are thankful to have it approved. And we were grateful. Dr. Kerberg came and pulled Sharon and I aside one day in the spring and said, "I have great news, your plan was approved," and we all took a big sigh of relief because there was still that scary point where we didn't know exactly what was going to be presented to us. And we knew that all the hard work and effort that our staff had put into the plan, that we had put into the plan, that our parents, that our students were doing at Indian Hill was going to pay off, and it sure did. We're very proud of what we have done at Indian Hill, and we will continue to make the great gains that we have seen in our data, and we will continue to do what's best for students at Indian Hill.
So where are we at this time? We will continue with the planning process with those 21 schools that are in needs improvement, year 4. We are expecting those schools to at least implement partial components of the action plan, and by 2015-16, all 21 of those schools will be implementing their plan. And that concludes our presentation for this evening.
Great. With that, before we go to questions, I'm just wondering if there's really detailed questions, if Dr. Kerberg, you would be willing to have some small group sessions with board members if they have questions. So let's go ahead and open it up to questions. And I think, Mr. Vargas, is that right? Did you have questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Both dual presentations, everybody coming. especially on night, and we're running a little bit later, but we have a lot to talk about, so thank you very much. And I think a special thank you reflection. I think what I really appreciated hearing about the restructuring plan is sort of the cultural mindset shift. A plan by itself, I don't think that in itself doesn't change schools. It is a tool to change schools, and that's why I've seen like the best beautiful plans that have been really successful for schools when they've taken it with this great grain of salt that we are in need of improvement, but that doesn't define us and it doesn't confine us, which I very much appreciated. But it does tell us where we are in an informative way and where we need to go. This is not about telling us we're bad people or we are a bad district. This is telling us that we are not where we need to be and we're currently not meeting the academic needs of all of our students. And so the questions I have are really, and I'm going to focus more on the school improvement first, but I just want to acknowledge that that culture that you identified, the change, the sense of possibility, I think is very key when we talk about school turnaround and then what we need to do dramatically different to make these changes happen. So my first question is around it's the school improvement process. From a lot of the work I've seen in other districts, either in Denver Public Schools, Boston, Charlotte-Mecklenburg, Austin, that are doing a lot of turnaround, part of their turnaround process, a significant piece, is how do they build district capacity? Now, I think one identification we've done is our executive directors in building capacity, but what I've seen is very specific district capacity that is allocated solely to school improvement and for our lowest performing schools. What are we doing to do that, to go into that realm? What research have we done? And if we are not going in that realm, because I think we need to, why are we not? Because we have more than 20 schools that are in this level 4, and clearly we don't have the capacity to address it, so what are we going to do? That's the first question.
Would you like staff to respond, principals, coordinators?
Probably more so staff.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know if Canyon, CK, Dr. Bennett, other principals would like to respond.
So I'll do the best I can, certainly. Can I rephrase back to you so that I know that I'm answering the question that you want? What I heard you ask is if we have 21 schools that are in need of restructuring, what are we doing in school improvement planning to build capacity to address those 21 schools?
Yeah, what are we doing to build district capacity? We're making the assumption that with our existing staff that we had the last 3 years that have been improving schools, but clearly not all of our schools into the same level, what makes us think that with the same amount of people, and we can't put everything on executive directors because they have a whole portfolio of schools, what is telling us and giving us assurance, our constituents specifically, that we can meet all of these goals for these lowest performing schools, and there's so many of them?
Sure. Well, and I hope I address it. I don't know that I'll get it all, and maybe Canyon and Dr. Kerber can help us out, but one of the things that I first think about when I talk about building capacity, and when I think about building capacity, has to do with the executive directors, has to do with curriculum instruction assessments, BST teams, those building support teams that are there specifically for that reason to be able to build that capacity. It's through their work and the school improvement planning that they go into that granular level of the plan and begin to look at some of the needs that those schools have. I can tell you just firsthand, and I think Ms. Comine can even support this, when we sit down and look at these plans, it doesn't end at just looking at them. We then take that feedback, we provide it back, and then we try to make adjustments with those schools. And by we, I mean the executive directors of school support, Ms. Christofferson and Ms. Dobson, our elementary and secondary directors, and the BST teams are all working to try to make adjustments to those plans. And I think in terms of building capacity, I mean, you said it right on. One of the things that we've done to build capacity is we've added some really high stakes, high level principal support and resource. And I know they can't do it all, but they are doing an amazing amount of work, and they really do look at those school improvement plans. I've heard from other principals that they will walk in with those school improvement plans open and having discussions about them, and it's not something that goes up on a shelf and goes away. So and again, this being the first year, executive directors aren't haven't completed a full year. We don't have a full amount of data to be able to see if that's making an improvement yet. But that's what I think about. I don't know if that addresses your question, but those are the elements that I think we're doing to try to build that capacity. And if I were to add one more thing in terms of capacity building for principals, I'm going to go back to what Ms. Comine mentioned in that 2-day retreat for principals, specifically intended to build capacity for those principals when it comes to leadership and instruction and addressing some of those issues.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to add, as far as how are we building the capacity at the district level, and CK mentioned a lot of them. We are providing continuous professional development for our people that we're sending out to buildings, so our building support teams, our supervisors that are out supporting principals and instructional leadership, they get professional development weekly from Dr. Kerberg, from the directors, on research-based best practices that they should be helping their buildings implement and put in place. I know we also, CK works with Ms. Christofferson, and I work with Mrs. Dobson to help our supervisors and BST teams better manage how to differentiate the support that they're giving in buildings, how to better facilitate the meetings that they're having on a regular basis with buildings that are based around the school improvement plan, their data, and they also work in conjunction with the executive director. So we're not working in silos per se, but we're all trying to work together to provide differentiated support to those buildings and continuously working on how we can improve our own skills so that we can better impart that to the building.
One item that we just recently completed that I think is a great example of that is Curriculum Instruction and Assessment spent an entire day last Wednesday evaluating how the academic action plan is working in each and every school, and there was a rubric that was developed, and they ranked those schools and are now able to see and have conversations with them. And that's just an internal audit of how things are going with the academic action plan. And that's, one element that we're dealing with here. So just an example of some of the professional development.
And again, for those Tier 1 schools that are Title I in corrective action and restructuring, all of that proof of evidence documentation must be sent to the Title I office. We review it. We make sure that it is in sync with our academic action plan. We send principals, leadership team a notification, and we go to the buildings and we give that support. But if there's something missing, I then send it to Dr. Kerberg, and then she will send a reminder to just give that support, and then the next step would be to send it to our executive directors. So we are really supporting our schools, and actually it's been a nice team. We've been working together. But we do our very best to make sure that our action plan is alive, it's a breathing document, it's not sitting on a shelf.
Would you like to hear that answered by a building principal as well? Would you like to hear from Dr. Bennett or Mr. Eubanks?
That's helpful.
Okay. All right.
That's helpful. And that's incredibly helpful to hear the context. And the reason why I asked the question is less because I don't think we actually have the thought power and the skills, but that it requires a significant amount of time and dedication, which you all know and have done, to turn around a school. And now looking at the sanctions, and I only like the sanctions, but No Child Left Behind, telling us what we're guiding us on what we need to turn around. It reminds me of the process we took with a strategic plan. We basically did an audit of our ability to meet the needs of our district, and I'm curious whether or not we're doing a more focused audit of, do we have the capacity to turn around these schools? What additional experts do we need to then be able to tap? What other districts do we need to look at? What other resources do we need to be? How can we build the capacity of schools that have gone through this process that can then support other schools to do it, and then also alleviate other principal capacity or school leader capacity so they can do that work? I think that's the question mark of my mind, because the strategic plan has a vision for it. I don't believe, and I haven't seen it, we have a vision for, I think, more of a like a turnaround, how we're turning around all of our schools over the course of the next 5 years, we have individualized plans. So that's the reason why I asked that question, because I think it's grounded in that. You talked about accountability, and that all this plan's about accountability. What happens when a school, and we talk about accountability for teachers, principals, what happens when a school's not meeting the improvement plan? What does accountability look like for a teacher or a principal? What if these schools don't improve over 2 years? Define accountability for us, because I think we talk a lot about curriculum, but there's an emphasis of performance management here that I want to explicitly make sure that constituents understand and know what accountability looks like in our district.
I'd like to invite any of the executive directors up. Melissa spoke earlier. We welcome her back, or anyone else who would like to speak to that, because we believe accountability is essential, and the principal framework, and I defer to Dr. Garnett if she wants to talk about that, has specific domains focused on academic achievement and increases in performance, and they work through those domains and hold our principals accountable for their performance measures. But I'll let them talk to that.
Both the teachers and principals have an evaluation process. The teachers have 4 domains, the principals have 4 domains. The teachers' domains are planning and instruction, classroom environment, instruction, and then also professional leadership responsibilities. When you take a look at the principal domain,